the July 8th regular council meeting to order at 6 p.m. Obviously, we have a fuller house as usual. So let's go over some ground rules real quick. We're going to have a bunch of presentations. What we want to do is be respectful of everybody's viewpoints. I'll ask that nobody applaud or boo or anything like that if you agree or disagree. We want everybody to feel comfortable to speak in the chamber and give their opinions on items. And so that's whether a public meeting or through presentations or delegations. So gladly accept everybody's cooperation with that. And I will now ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we will start our evening off with a safe and well presentation and charter from our warden, our friend, Sarah Hamulecki. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Could I just interrupt you for a second? We have a procedural item first. I'm turning to Deputy Mayor Wilson, who I thank you for reminding me.
That the order of the July 8th agenda be revised so that Special Staff Report CS-017-24 2024-2025 Arena Ice Allocation be considered following delegations and presentations.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Van Kootenbos. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Please continue.
Certainly. Again, thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to come in and speak with you all and provide you with an update regarding Safe and Well Oxford, Oxford County's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. As mentioned, my name is Sarah Hamulecki, and I am the Manager of Strategic Initiatives and Intergovernmental Relations at the County of Oxford, and I am one of the co-leads for Safe and Well Oxford. And I think most of you are familiar with our Warden, who is the chair of our Safe and Well Oxford Steering Committee. So we are actually coming up to sort of the final leg of our little road show, you could call it, that we've been on throughout the month of June and just finishing off at the end of July. So we have been going around to each and every one of the area municipalities, as I mentioned, to provide an update so that you all can be brought up to speed with regards to what we've been working on as a steering committee and through our action coalitions. So in the next few minutes, we will be going over a brief history, because I presume some of you were not around when the original plan was actually approved and endorsed by the area municipalities. We're going to be talking a little bit about metrics, providing an update in terms of where we're at with that. We'll be discussing an inclusion charter, which was included as part of your agenda. And then lastly, we'll be giving you a bit of insight to what we're going to be working on in the rest of 2024, which is already halfway over pretty much. So I'll let the warden take over.
So by way of background, we are here today because in 2019, the provincial government passed the Community Safety and Policing Act, and that required all municipalities in the province of Ontario that provide police services to develop a community safety and wellbeing plan. So in Oxford County, that means all the 8 area municipalities, but not Oxford County. So why is Oxford County here talking to you about your community safety and wellbeing plan? When the 8 area clerks who were responsible for implementing the community safety and wellbeing plan got together, they realized a couple things. One was that they were going to be asking all of the community partners in developing a community safety wellbeing plan to attend 8 community safety wellbeing plan meetings a month in order to do that work. And that was going to mean that you're going to be asking the people to deliver these frontline services to stop what they're doing 8 times a month and go to a meeting to not do the work that we want them to do. The second thing they realized was that Oxford County, while not required legislatively to participate, was the deliverer of human services in Oxford County for all the area municipalities and housing services, and that really it was not ideal to develop a community safety wellbeing plan that did not involve the partner that delivered human services and housing services. So there was a suggestion made then, and it was adopted by resolution by all 8 area municipalities and the county, that a community safety wellbeing plan be developed by and coordinated by the county with all 8 area municipalities. So a single collaborative community safety wellbeing plan was developed, and the process to develop that shared plan began in September of 2020 to develop the plan, and then it was circulated to all of the 8 area municipalities who adopted it by resolution and said, yes, adopt this plan and implement it. That work was greatly slowed, of course, by COVID and then municipal elections happened, and so there was a lot of pause. So it really didn't get to the meaty part of getting it done until this term of council's. And the steering committee was established and has been working at this for just over a year at getting this work done. And so we are here back today to report to you on what we have done so far, where we're at, a big ask of your council, and to tell you what we are going to be doing next. That's your resolution on there somewhere.
So this graphic in the presentation is a really great summary or representation of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan as a whole. So you can see we've got the steering committee up at the top helping to guide the progress. And then you can see our 5 priority risk areas. So hopefully you can recall just last December, November-ish December, I believe, the gender-based violence priority risk area was added. Prior to that, it was the other 4 in existence. So mental health, substance misuse and addiction, affordable housing, diversity, equity, inclusion, and then now gender-based violence. And then below that, you can actually see our action coalitions. So because of the overlap and duplication, we have 1 representing mental health and substance misuse and addictions. And then you can see the other 3 that we have for the remaining priority risk areas. So as far as metrics go, for those of you who have anything to do with them, you will be able to agree that they can be an incredibly daunting and overwhelming endeavor, I guess you could say. So primarily it's just because there is so much data that is out there. So we've been trying to take all of what's available, parse it down to what we really want to try to measure and start measuring something. I think we all know that it's important that when we're trying to see progress, that we need to be able to measure against things to make sure that we actually are making some progress. So the steering committee has been working with Southwestern Public Health primarily. That was kind of our starting point because they have a vast amount of data available and they are more than happy to share it with us. So we started there, taking a look at the actual plan and what we were hoping to accomplish and then figuring out what might match with the data that they already have available to them. And then we've reached out and worked with our action coalitions to kind of try to fill in gaps, connecting with police services, with the data that they have available, and as well as the Ontario Health Team, Oxford Ontario Health Team. So one of the main things that we have been looking for is to try to actually collect data that is already in existence. We would rather not create work. We know that everybody is already busy, and they collect tons of great data. So we're trying to, at least for now, start with what's already in existence and then kind of work our way through it and see how it evolves. We do very much anticipate that the metrics that we're using they're going to change. They'll adapt. We'll pick different ones. We may need to switch it up, that kind of thing. A couple of other keys in terms of the metrics that I would like to mention is that in the 2024 budget, Oxford County did include funds to conduct the Canadian Index of Wellbeing survey. That's a survey that was conducted back in and around 2016 and 2017, and it's timely, if not a little bit overdue, to do that survey again, and that will represent a great source of information for us. So that process is just in the very preliminary stages, and we will continue to kind of roll that out throughout the rest of 2024. And then another thing that I would just like to mention is a new and interesting group that I've joined that is actually focused very specifically on the rural indicators associated with community safety and well-being plans. So it's very, very new, but I think, as you'll all agree, that as Oxford County, we have a lot of rural areas, and it's very important for us to gather data relevant to those areas as well, too. So included in your package as well are some sample indicators. I'm not going to go over those. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at them, but they are included as well. So moving on to the inclusion charter. So this, I believe, was included with each of your agenda packages. And the inclusion charter is really, it's a statement by our municipalities in this case that we are committed to making our communities welcoming and inclusive. And this inclusion charter was actually identified very specifically within the plan as an outcome. And so once our DEI Action Coalition was established back in the fall of 2023, one of the very first things they started working on was creating Oxford County's Inclusion Charter. So we have circulated it with the area municipalities, and there are a few things that I would like to highlight with regards to the Inclusion Charter. So one of the main ones is actually the calls to action. So there is a section at the back of the Inclusion Charter, and those calls to actions were included as feedback from our area municipalities when the Action Coalition sought feedback from representatives in our area municipalities. And I want to emphasize that they have been included as what we would consider to be suggested best practices. It's not necessarily an exhaustive list or the only calls to action in particular, for example, that our municipalities can engage in. There might be some that some municipalities have already accomplished and they don't even have to do that. There could be training, for example, that maybe a staff member has attended and they really liked, and it's not the exact same title as what's included in the calls to action. But if that's something that municipality would like to do, then that would probably be appropriate for them to do that instead of what was suggested. So that's a key piece that I did want to mention and explain with regards to those calls to action. And then the other thing that I want to share is that the Action Coalition is continuing to work on other tools and resources. So they were only established back in the fall as well, and it does take a little bit of time to kind of get themselves up and running. And so I think they've done really well in getting the Inclusion Charter completed, and with that, they will just continue to create other tools and resources that we hope to be able to share, not only with our area municipalities, but potentially other organizations within our communities as well, if it's applicable and relevant to them. I think that's...
Thank you. Yep. So looking ahead in 2024, first thing in 2024 for us is, as Sarah said, we're doing this roadshow and asking all of the municipalities to endorse the Inclusion Charter that Sarah just summarized. So I'm here today as the chair, as the co-chair, to ask, suggest, arm twist a little bit, whatever is needed, that Inclusion Charter be endorsed by your council. When I think about equity, diversity, and inclusion, we formed an action coalition because when the plan was being developed, a fundamental part of the Safe and Well Oxford plan was that it was going to be residents and organizations that work in these areas were going to tell us what was needed. The last thing Oxford residents who do not feel that they are included need is a 53-year-old white presumed heterosexual dude telling them, it's okay, you're included. We need to listen to those people that tell us when they are not included, why they do not feel included, and what we can do as municipal government to change that. That's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be quick. It's not always going to be cheap. I personally think that these are relatively modest principles for us all to adopt. So that's the end of my arm twisting on the Inclusion Charter. Happy to take questions in a minute on that. But looking ahead in the rest of 2024, we are planning the next update. We have to, by law, we have to update the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. We need to begin doing that work because it is now due in July 2025. So we need to begin doing that work now. To some extent, we've made some updates, as you know, by adding the one priority risk area already. But I would encourage all of you to think about the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, pay attention to it, and tell us what you think is working, what is not working, because we're going to have to develop a new plan at some point. I would prefer to do that with input and make it better than it is today. We are going to have a summit again on November 1st at Oxford Centre Hall. We had a summit last fall. It was very well received. 80-something people there. We were only able to accommodate one member of council and one member of staff from each of the municipalities because there was 80-something people. There's simply a limit to the size of halls that are available to us to host that, but very well received, and we got some really good constructive criticism. We're going to try and build all that into the summit again and do that. And then Oxford County at 2024 budget deliberations gave direction to county staff to develop a grant policy. That grant policy is going to give consideration, or the development of the grant policy is going to give consideration to Safe and Well Oxford. Don't know what that's going to look like yet, but there is every possibility that there will be some form of granting recommended for Safe and Well Oxford partners to help advance that goal. we'll see what comes of that when we get that in, the county council look at that in early fall. And the last one is a little bit of a pet idea of myself that I've been pushing at Safe and Well Oxford and with a lot of the Safe and Well Oxford partners is on space sharing. We've heard delegations from many community safety and wellbeing plan partners that say they want to deliver services, they want to deliver them other than the place that they do it in, sort of Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday as the case may be. And they'd like to go out into different parts of Oxford County and deliver those services, which I think is an amazing opportunity for all of our residents to get that. It occurred to me that as municipalities, whether it's Oxford County with libraries or area municipalities with recreation halls, we have a lot of spaces that are underutilized, right? We all have community halls that are empty on Tuesday morning from 9 till noon, right? There is a huge opportunity, I think, there for us as area municipalities and as the county to make those spaces available at no cost to community safety and wellbeing partners who are going to deliver services that align with the Safe and Well Oxford plan. So, not sure exactly what that looks like yet. I'm giving this little speech at every single area municipality that we go to. I'm talking to all the area municipal partners about it. We talk about it at the steering committee. I'm hoping that in the coming months you'll see something coming saying, you know, can we jointly agree amongst all 9 of us on some kind of policy whereby we will make certain hours and certain facilities available to Safe and Well Oxford partners under prescribed circumstances, and then it's up to them whether they want to use them or not. If they use them, they use them. If they don't, they don't. But frankly, it would be in halls that we're probably underutilizing anyway, so really not a big ask of us. So I would just encourage you to think about that a little bit, give me any input you have on that, and look for that coming forward to your council in coming months, end of the year. But with that, I would end, and both Sarah and I would be happy to take any questions that you have on the Safe and Well Oxford plan in general, and exactly how you're going to endorse the inclusion charter in particular.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and I must say that I think you're extremely well dressed tonight. I certainly endorse your choice of outfit. So, are there questions of council? Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the delegation. Adopting this policy or charter, how much in the way of resources is this going to take from the municipality to be able to make work? Both money, time, and staff?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bowman. To be honest, that's a difficult one for me to answer personally in my position. I think it's primarily going to be up to each of the area municipalities. Every municipality is different. Some have more specific dedicated resources. Some have already engaged in some of the work that's already included in the inclusion charters. So I don't personally have like a ballpark figure off the top of my head in terms of what that cost would actually look like. I know that we have offered support to some of the other area municipalities as well, and we're looking to schedule a meeting to continue to work with them to talk about like what could it actually look like, and gather some more of that information. But it's just too difficult for me to answer, not knowing the insides and outs of each of the municipalities. I don't know if the warden has anything else he wants to add.
The only thing I would add is it was developed as an inclusion charter, not a policy. So it doesn't dictate to your council or any of the councils what you must do or how you must do it. It's a commitment to goals of inclusivity. And then, as Sarah said, each municipality can do that differently. You could do it at a different pace. A certain municipality might decide, you know what, let's just do it all, 2025 budget to get it done. Another municipality might say, we're going to implement this slowly over 5 years. It's up to you. We're suggesting that these are appropriate commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and if they were declared, if they were endorsed as commitments, that then it would be up to this council how they wanted to advance those in Ingersoll as opposed to in Zora or in Woodstock or in Norwich. So really what we're looking for is an endorsement that they are good guiding principles and therefore an adoption by this council that they are. I think of it a lot of the time similarly to the way Oxford County has a commitment to 100% housed. We made a commitment that everybody in Oxford should be housed. Not tomorrow, because we can't do that without a like 5,000% tax increase, but that ultimately everybody should be housed. Similarly, I think everybody should be included. And here's how we do that. Exactly how you do that in Ingersoll and how fast you do that, how much you budget for that, what resources you allocate, as Sarah said, would be up to Ingersoll Council.
And if I could just add to that, the Warden and I had some conversations on this. Obviously, as we have shared the work of Safe and Well Oxford, I think there's lots of opportunities to work with our neighbors and our partners to try to see where there's commonalities there to have some efficiencies and move forward on, there's 8 of us, 9 of us, so that we don't really need to make everything new. We can work together and create some efficiencies that way as well. Councillor Hallery, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I have a question. So I've seen the calls to action, I've seen the commitments and the responsibilities, and it's awesome, it's well put together, but I just wanted, is there any commitment to resource, like feedback from those who actually experience? Is there, because I've not seen the mechanism in which we would process that information to be able to add more policy elements to cover them? Because this is kind of like we acknowledge, we process, we understand, but then how do we incorporate the feedback from these groups in this policy?
Good question. Through the mayor to the councillor. Was it Howard?
Yes.
Sorry. That's a very good question. I think to answer partially, at least anyways, when our action coalition is actually made up very specifically of people with lived experiences, and so they were very actively involved in putting together the actual calls to action. Can I just ask for clarification? Are you looking for more going forward? How are we going to measure the?
Yeah, because I know that you guys have the county DEI representative of different groups, and I wondered the feedback that they have helped create some of these insights. But then how do we going forward receive feedback and just a pathway to actually keep in check of what's happening? I don't see that we incorporated a mechanism to receive complaints or feedback as we go so that we can continuously reform policy.
Yeah, so the warden just kind of muttered that metrics. So ideally, some of the metrics that we would identify and what we will continue to gather, and I can confirm that some of the questions in the Canadian Index of Wellbeing do actually touch on feeling welcome in your community and things like that. So that would certainly be an element of that, but I also recognize that survey is being done later this year and we won't likely actually see benefits of that. But if we were to do that survey again, that would be an opportunity to do that. I think that I know Oxford County has a mechanism that our residents can provide feedback related to service and things like that. So that could potentially be another area. And then I think other than that, the only thing I can really commit to is making a mental note of that and looking at how we could maybe do a better job at that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First one, 53, really? Wow, you're old. That's a comment.
In July, if that helps.
There we go, okay. What is the status of what the county has it been presented to county? Has county actually done their assessment of what they're going to be doing with the different calls to action and how they're going to approach that?
Through the mayor to the councillor, so the county hasn't actually been presented the inclusion charter. We have it on it's going to be going to county council in August, I believe. We wanted to kind of do all of the other area municipalities first and then take it to county council, presuming that everybody else has endorsed it already, so then we can take it to county council. And then as far as our own plan, so Oxford County has a DEI their own internal DEI committee, and they already have a plan. I can't remember when it was approved. I feel like it might have been sometime last year, maybe. And so they're already kind of working away at various things within their own plan. I suspect what will happen is that they will then take the inclusion charter, kind of cross-reference, see where they maybe would have some gaps, potentially update their own plan, and then continue to work on it. The county does have a DEI, a full-time equivalent position that is dedicated to DEI that does some of the internal aspects in combination with our HR department. And then they also look at and work with sort of the external community safety wellbeing plan action coalition side of things. So that's kind of how we're going about it right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Kootenbosens, I believe you have a resolution.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kootenbosens, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson. Whereas municipalities within Oxford County, including the townships of Blandford, Blenheim, East Zora, Tavistock, Norwich, Zora, and Southwest Oxford, together with the town of Ingersoll, the town of Tillsonburg, and the city of Woodstock, developed a shared community safe and well-being plan, Safe and Well Oxford, in response to the requirements of the Police Services Act to be led by Oxford County. The municipalities together created a plan to improve the overall well-being of their communities and enhance the lives of residents across the county. And whereas the Safe and Well-being Oxford Community Safety and Well-being Plan serves as a strategic as a strategic framework for addressing the community safety and well-being priorities as follows. 1, mental health. 2, affordable housing. 3, substance misuse. 4, equity, diversity, and inclusion. 5, gender-based violence. And whereas the Inclusion Charter for Oxford is an integral component of the goals and objectives of the Safe and Well Oxford Community Safety and Well-being Plan, the Inclusion Charter for Oxford will strengthen efforts to create a safe, inclusive, and thriving community for all residents and represents a fundamental commitment to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion across all of our communities. And whereas the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, DEI, Action Coalition has been established by the Safe and Well Oxford Steering Committee to provide guidance and recommendations for implementing inclusive practices within our organizations and communities. And therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll endorse the Inclusion Charter for Oxford as a guiding framework for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion within our organization and community. And further, that the Council for the Town of Ingersoll requests that the Oxford Safe and Well Committee work with area municipalities to develop sample policies for the implementation of the priority areas and goals mentioned in the Charter for consideration by the municipality. And further, that Council affirm its commitment to creating an inclusive environment where all individuals feel valued, respected, and empowered to contribute to the social and overall well-being of Oxford County.
Thank you very much, Councillor Van Kootenbosens. I know your voice is a little bit struggling tonight, so I appreciate you getting the longest resolution possible. So, well done. Discussion. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. More of a comment to say that the DEI committee was afforded the opportunity to comment on the draft version of the charter and is really excited about how the ways this could kind of build the capacity, increase their ability to achieve our mandate. So I think Ingersoll is really well positioned to kind of bring this to life, which is very exciting.
Further comment? I just want to say this is a good example of the county's motto of growing stronger together. If we pooled resources and really the work got done, not by 8 or 9 different municipalities, but by one group of people coming together and still getting all the information there. And now we're having results coming from that effort. Really, this, unfortunately, Safe and Well plans have the opportunity just to be dust collecting items on a shelf, but Oxford is not doing that. They're out there trying to get things that actually come from it. And I think that's important. I think that's why we should endorse this. I think it's important to work with our neighbors on what those policies look like. Everybody has different ideas and we can come together and have the best coming out. So I have no problem voting for the resolution. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Excellent. And we will now move on to Deputy Mayor Wilson for the consent agenda, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the items contained in the July 8th, 2024 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we'll do council minutes. Councillor Hughes, please, for June 3rd.
Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the minutes of the June 3rd, 2024 special meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Halleru, the minutes for the June 10th special meeting, please.
Thank you. Yes, through you, moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Van that the minutes of the June 10th, 2024 meeting, special meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Van Kooten-Bossen's the June 24th, 2024 special meeting of council minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the minutes of the June 24th, 2024 special meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Those are carried. Okay, with that, we will go to special staff reports. And our first one is CP 2024219, and that's the housekeeping item. And Mr. Graves, I will turn that over to you for comment.
Yes, and I think I'm going to turn this directly over to staff if there's anything that we would like to highlight.
Thank you and good evening, Council. So Council will recall that on June 10th, we did consider an application from the town to update the town's house zoning bylaw with a number of minor amendments to clarify a few recent updates to the provincial changes with respect to the Source Water Protection Act and the Child Care and Early Years Act, the housekeeping specifically with respect to the Child Care and Early Years Act, the housekeeping updates made changes to the home occupation provisions to increase the number of children that would be permitted within a private home daycare. I won't go over the full list of the proposed edits because we did go over that at the June 10th meeting, but we do have a bylaw prepared for council's consideration, and I'm available for any questions should they come up.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report from council? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Planner's Report CP 2024-219 as information, and that Council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number ZN 6-24-01, to introduce housekeeping amendments to Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw number 04-4160.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, our next item has been moved, so we'll now go to development charges interest policy. Mr. Graves, please.
I'm going to turn this one over to Irina for comment.
Thank you. Our existing development charges interest policy requires an amendment to align with the updates to the Development Charges Act introduced through Bill 23. So specifically regarding the maximum interest rate that can be charged on installments and rate freeze. So now the maximum rate is prescribed as average prime rate plus 1%. So the report is introducing the updated development charges interest policy. If council has any questions, I will be more than happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Halleru, you have a resolution, please.
Yes. Thank you, through you. Moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report T-013-24 as information, and that Council repeals the former development charge interest policy dated April 1st, 2020, and further that Council approve the new development charge interest policy attached as Attachment A.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we will now, yes, we can go to Committee of Adjustment, which I believe we have Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll go into a Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance applications, A-02-2 and A-011-24.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We are now sitting as the Committee of Adjustment, and I will turn it over to staff to for the report. Heather, would you like to give that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On June 10th, the committee heard an application for minor variance to facilitate the construction of a 40 square meter or 440 square foot addition to an existing 84 square meter residential accessory structure on the subject lands located at 329 Oxford Street. So once enlarged, the detached garage would be approximately 124 square meters or 1,336 square feet in size, which does exceed the maximum lot coverage allowance of 100 square meters or 1,076 square feet for residential accessory structures permitted in the zoning bylaw. So planning staff have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of a minor variance. The subject lands are designated as low-density residential in the official plan, which is intended for the development of low-density residential uses, such as single detached dwellings, as well as their accessory structures. So staff are satisfied that the proposal does meet the intent of the official plan. The property is zoned as R1 in the zoning bylaw, which also permits single detached dwellings together with their residential accessory structures. The zoning bylaw does dictate that accessory structures in a residential zone are not permitted to exceed more than 10% of the lot area or 100 square meters of gross floor area, whichever is lesser. And the intent of this provision is to ensure that residential accessory buildings do remain clearly secondary and subordinate to the principal use of the property for residential purposes, while having minimal impact on surrounding neighboring properties. This provision is also intended to ensure that there is sufficient space available on private property to accommodate for appropriate lot grading and drainage and private amenity areas. The subject lands are approximately 2,300 square meters in size, or half an acre, which would result in an approximate lot coverage of 5% for the proposed accessory structure. And as such, planning staff are satisfied that the size of the subject lands are sufficiently large enough to accommodate the proposed addition, while providing for sufficient area for private amenity space on the property. Further, staff are of the opinion that the detached accessory structure will remain secondary and ancillary to the main use of the property, and the proposed addition, which will be located to the rear of the existing detached garage, is not anticipated to have any negative impact on any surrounding properties. So as such, staff are satisfied that the application meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. With respect to agency comments, the building department did comment that the design of the proposed structure is a pole barn style, which would need to be considered under Part 4 of the building code and will be required to be designed by a qualified engineer. Further, it's noted that the construction drawings provided as part of this application did show a covered porch from the main dwelling, which touches the accessory structure, which would not be permitted based on the required 1.2 meter setback between a main building and an accessory building in the zoning bylaw. The applicant has indicated that it's not their intention to cover the to establish the covered porch at this time, and therefore, as a condition of approval, the building department has requested that a revised drawing be submitted to their satisfaction, showing a compliant setback between the two buildings. But overall, staff are satisfied that the proposed addition will not change the character of the subject lands or impact any surrounding land uses, and the detached accessory structure will continue to be used for residential purposes. No comments of concern were received from any of the neighboring property owners, and overall, staff are satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and can be supported from a planning perspective, subject to the recommended condition for the submission of a revised drawing showing a compliant setback between the existing building and the existing dwelling. And I'm available if the committee has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members of the committee have questions? Councillor Halliburton, please. Or sorry, Member Halliburton.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Heather. So when you talk about the condition, I don't know if it's you or the building inspector, do they now have to remove that covering before we get this approved, or it's something that they already agreed to take out before?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Committee Member Halleru. The applicants have agreed to this condition. It will just be a matter of providing updated drawings so the committee can approve the request tonight, but the approval isn't implemented until they've provided that revised drawing to the satisfaction of the building department.
Excellent. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Wilson, you have a resolution, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Hughes, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive Planner's Report CP 2024-208 as information and that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment approve application file A01-24 submitted by Steve Parkhill for lands described as lots 11 and 12 and part lots 7 and 9, Block 30, Plan 279 being municipally known as 329 Oxford Street in the Town of Ingersoll as it relates to 1, relief from the provisions of Section 5.1, accessory uses, buildings and structures, Table 5.1.1.4 to increase the maximum gross floor area of the building accessory to a residential use from 100 meters squared or 1,076 feet squared to 124.1 meters squared or 1,336 feet squared to permit a 40.8 meters squared or 440 feet squared addition to an existing detached garage, subject to the following condition. 1, conditional on the submission of revised construction drawings showing a compliant setback between the main dwelling on the subject lands and the detached residential accessory structure to the satisfaction of the town building department. As the proposed variance is considered to be 1, a minor variance from the provisions of the Town of Ingersoll bylaw 04-4160, desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw number 4-4160, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan of the County of Oxford.
Thank you very much, Member Wilson. I apologize for the slip in protocol there of calling Deputy Mayor Wilson while we're in the Committee of Adjustment. Discussion on the application and resolution. Seeing none, all those members in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now go in to consider application A-01-24. So Clarke, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I can request perhaps that the plates from the staff report be brought up on the screen, it may help for clarification. So the next application for committee's consideration is an application for minor variance, which has been requested to facilitate the construction of a commercial plaza on the subject lands that will contain a range of commercial rental spaces, including a large-scale food store, which is shown as CRU 2B on plate 3 of the staff report, a non-food retail use, which is shown as CRU 2A, a fast food eating establishment with an associated drive-through on the southwest side of the subject lands, shown as CRU 3, and a bank of 5 commercial rental units, shown as CRU 1A through E on the east side of the property. And the proposal would be served by 3 new driveway entrances and a new parking lot, which currently includes 201 regular parking spaces plus 10 barrier-free spaces for a total of 211 parking spaces on the subject lands, which are located at the northeast corner of Hollingshead Road and Clarke Road. The applicants have also submitted an application for site plan approval, which is being reviewed concurrently with the minor variance application by town staff. And since the initial submission of these applications earlier this year, a number of revisions to the plan have been received to address a number of staff concerns with respect to the overall functionality of the site, including a revision to the orientation of the fast food building and the drive-through layout, as well as the addition of new snow storage areas and better pedestrian and vehicle safety considerations and delivery and garbage pickup accommodations. And as a result of some of these changes, the applicants were able to amend their initially requested variances that were presented at the May 13th public meeting, including an increase to the front yard variance from 5.3 meters to 7.4 meters, and an increase to the proposed landscape open space variance from 9% of lot area to 12% lot area. However, a number of variances are still required to facilitate the proposal, including a reduction to the loading space requirement for the CRU 3 building from 3 to that width requirement from 3.5 meters to 3 meters, a reduction or the removal of the loading space requirement for the CRU 1 bank of commercial uses, reduction to the required number of regular parking spaces on the site from 223 spaces to 201 regular spaces, and a reduction to the required exterior side yard width from 7.5 meters to 2.9 meters. The property is designated as service commercial in the official plan, and generally the uses proposed by the applicant are consistent with the intended land uses for this designation. However, the official plan does provide that site plan control is to be applied to service commercial uses, and through that process, adequate off-street parking and loading spaces are to be provided. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed number of parking spaces and the proposed loading arrangement for the CRU1 Bank of Commercial Uses will not be sufficient to satisfy the intent of the official plan to apply appropriate site plan considerations for the commercial development, which does have potential to lead to congestion and functionality issues for the site. And as such, staff are of the opinion that the requested variance to the parking and loading space requirement, particularly as it applies to the CRU1 Bank of Commercial Uses, is not consistent with the intent of the zoning bylaw, the official plan. With respect to the zoning bylaw, the property is zoned as Special Highway Commercial Zone, HC-10, which is a site-specific zone that also applies to the lands to the immediate north and to the immediate east of the subject lands. And this site-specific zoning was established in 2012 to implement a decision of the Ontario Municipal Board to permit commercial uses on the subject lands. The HC-10 zone permits a wide range of commercial uses and requires the minimum front yard depth and exterior side yard width of 7.5 meters and requires a minimum of 15% lot coverage, or 15% open space. And it's the intent of these provisions to ensure that buildings on private property are sufficiently set back to not interfere with the right-of-way maintenance and sight lines, while the landscaped open space provision is intended to ensure that sufficient impervious area is available to accommodate appropriate stormwater management. Staff have reviewed the detailed site plan submitted by the applicant and are generally satisfied that there is sufficient setback between the public right-of-way and the proposed development to allow for appropriate visibility and for vehicle pedestrian safety. And staff have reviewed the stormwater management plans and are satisfied that stormwater will be appropriately accommodated. Further, the applicant has provided a detailed planting plan to demonstrate additional landscaped areas on the site, including parking lot planting islands, which will allow for increased vegetative areas and plantings. So based on this, staff are satisfied that the intent of the zoning bylaw can be maintained with respect to the requested yard setbacks and landscape open space reductions. The HC-10 zone also establishes maximum restrictions on the gross leasable floor area for specific uses and establishes an overall parking calculation of 1 space for every 20 square meters of gross leasable commercial floor area. So as previously mentioned, the site-specific parking ratio was also established by way of the previous Ontario Municipal Board decision, which reduced the typical parking requirements of the zoning bylaw for this site-wide parking calculation. And so for committee's information, as it applies to the subject lands, the zoning bylaw would typically require 275 regular parking spaces plus 8 barrier-free spaces for a total of 283 spaces if it were to be subject to the typical parking requirements on this site. Based on the amended parking ratio, the parking requirement would be 223 spaces, regular spaces, as per the gross leasable commercial floor area calculation as provided by the chief building official. And this many required parking spaces would result in 7 additional barrier-free spaces to be dedicated, for a total required number of parking spaces of 230, whereas the applicants have proposed 201 regular spaces plus 10 barrier-free spaces for a total of 211, a reduction of 19 spaces from the required number of parking spaces as per the chief building official. In addition to this, the engineering department has commented that based on the required truck movement scenarios provided by the applicants, which are shown on plate 4 of the staff report, there are approximately 6 additional parking spaces on the east side of the property serving the CRU1 Bank of Commercial Units that would be inaccessible for certain portions of the day to accommodate garbage and delivery vehicles. And while the applicants have indicated that these spaces could potentially be utilized during non-delivery and pickup hours, it's not possible for the town to regulate these no parking hours on private property, and therefore these spaces should also be removed from the overall parking inventory, resulting in a further reduction to the proposed number of parking spaces to 195. Staff are of the opinion that the requested reduction to the required number of parking spaces, which has already been subject to substantial reductions to the requirements via the OMB decision, is not in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw to ensure that there's sufficient area dedicated to patron parking and to ensure that the commercial sites function appropriately, and approval of the requested reduction has potential to result in congestion and the need for overflow or on-street parking to accommodate the commercial uses. Additional variances have been requested to reduce the loading space requirements in the zoning bylaw. The revised site plan shows a compliant loading scenario for the CRU 2A and 2B uses and would require only a small reduction to the width of the required loading space for the CRU 3 building from 3.5 meters to 3 meters. And staff are generally satisfied that this reduction will allow for sufficient space to access garbage and delivery entrances for the CRU 3 buildings on the southwest side of the property. However, there does not appear to be an appropriately sized space dedicated for the CRU 1 bank of commercial uses to accommodate business deliveries, which would include restaurant deliveries, or garbage pickup without resulting in parking disruptions. And as such, staff are not supportive of this requested variance to the loading space requirement for the CRU 1 bank of commercial uses. With respect to staff comments, the building department did outlined in their interpretation of the gross leasable commercial floor area and associated parking calculation, and noted that the barrier-free parking spaces are required to be considered in addition to the regular number of parking spaces. And this department did indicate that if approved, the application and drawings should be amended to show the required number of parking spaces based on their interpretation. The town engineering department commented that the proposed garbage collection areas will impact the 6 parking spaces in proximity to the CRU 1 building and will further increase the parking deficiency, and that the requested variances have potential to establish an undesirable precedent, particularly in consideration to the vacant commercial lands to the immediate east, and that the previous decision of the OMB should be upheld for these reasons as well, as they will apply to the neighboring lands as well. Further, this department commented that the parking calculation is established by taking into consideration the available land area and allowing for an appropriate building design based on this. And this should be adhered to for greenfield development, which is not encumbered by any external factors. This department also indicated that they have no concerns with respect to the requested reduction to the front and exterior side yard depths, as sightlines will not be impacted by the proposed building setbacks. And with respect to the requested reduction to open space, the applicant is now showing appropriate areas for snow storage, and this department has no further concerns for this variance. In order for the committee to be satisfied that a minor variance is appropriate, they need to be satisfied that the proposal is considered desirable development for the subject lands. So in determining whether a variance is desirable, the official plan provides that a number of factors are to be considered, including whether there are any constraints or restrictions on the property due to the physical conditions of the property, whether alternative site designs for the proposal are clearly not feasible or appropriate, whether the approval would create an undesirable precedent, and whether compliance with the zoning bylaw would be unreasonable or impossible and impose undue hardship on the applicant. The applicants have worked with staff to modify the original proposal to accommodate much of staff's concerns on the site. However, planning staff are of the opinion that there are no constraints on the subject lands that would prohibit the development from meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw with respect to parking and loading, and that there are alternative designs that could be provided that would enable conformity with the relevant parking and loading requirements of the zoning bylaw. Specifically, staff are of the opinion that a minor reduction to the bank of the CRU 1 commercial uses would reduce the required number of parking spaces on site while allowing for additional room to accommodate parking and loading considerations. So based on this, staff are of the opinion that there are feasible alternative designs that would be in compliance with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. And given that these lands are currently vacant, it is reasonable to expect that compliance with the zoning bylaw can be achieved without resulting in any undue hardship on the applicants. Additionally, while it is noted that each application is reviewed on its own merit, concerns from town staff have been provided outlining similar situations where commercial developments have been made to comply with parking regulations in the past. Further, given that the future development potential of the lands to the east and south, which are also intended for commercial development, it's reasonable to assume that any approvals for parking reductions would be precedent-setting for future greenfield developments. As such, staff are of the opinion that the proposal is not considered to be desirable development for the subject lands. So overall, while staff are generally agreeable to the requested reductions to the required landscape open space and front and exterior side yard setbacks, staff are of the opinion that the requested variances to the parking provisions and the loading space provisions for the CRU1 bank of commercial units is not justifiable. The applicants did provide the committee with correspondence earlier today outlining a number of concerns with respect to our recommendation. In response to this, staff would note that we have had significant consultation with the applicants, including 4 rounds of site plan submissions and many meetings in order to come up with a design that staff believe is functional and safe for the subject lands. Throughout the entire process, staff have been upfront with the applicants as to the required parking, which has changed based on the gross leasable floor area calculations provided by the applicant, and the interpretation of requiring barrier-free spaces to be in addition to the overall parking requirements is the standard process for the town. And this interpretation has been applied to all commercial developments throughout the town, so to change this interpretation now for this development would be inappropriate. Further, it has never been our interpretation, nor has it been for any other municipality throughout the county, to include drive-through queuing spaces as part of the overall parking calculation, as a parking space is considered to be for temporary parking of a motor vehicle, which would be considered to mean bringing a vehicle to a full stop and temporarily leaving it unoccupied, which is not the case for a drive-through situation, where drivers continue to occupy their vehicle and drive through the order line in order to patronize the site. This correspondence also included a number of examples of commercial developments within large urban centers that was previously forwarded to staff that appear to show a similar type of garbage storage arrangement that's being proposed for this development. However, staff have no knowledge of these developments or what their parking situations may be, or any specific approvals that may apply to any of these examples. So as such, staff are of the opinion that these other developments and other site renderings that were provided by the applicant this afternoon are not applicable to this application. Further, the applicant has provided an example of the existing McDonald's drive-through and garbage collection site in the town of Ingersoll, which is located within the Shoppers Drug Mart Plaza, to demonstrate a similar scenario as to what is being proposed in this instance. Staff note that this is a very good example of a situation we are trying to avoid with this development by ensuring that there is an appropriately accessible location for loading and garbage collection without hindering the ability of any vehicles or pedestrians to move through the site. With respect to the existing McDonald's situation in Ingersoll, the building department has indicated that they field many complaints about this commercial site on a regular basis, and I would assume that the committee is familiar with this site and the way vehicles get blocked in with drive-through traffic, particularly when garbage collection occurs. So much so to the extent that loading for this site is actually generally occurs on Catherine Street, which is the exact situation that we're trying to avoid with the development of the subject lands in this instance. So overall, this site provided by the applicant is a good example of why these considerations are important to the overall functionality of the site. And so just to reiterate, planning staff are generally supportive of the variances to the requested landscape open space, as well as the setbacks to the exterior and front yard setbacks, but planning staff are not recommending in support of the requested variances to the number of parking spaces based on the interpretation of the chief building official and the loading space requirement for the CRU1 bank of commercial uses. And I'm available for any questions. I appreciate council's patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are going to have to hold off as we are at 7 p.m. We're time for a public meeting. So we will adjourn temporarily. I'll ask the resolution to temporarily adjourn this meeting and reconvene as council. Is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Van Kootenbossens, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I will ask for a 5-minute recess for those. Deputy Mayor Wilson, Councillor Hughes, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll reconvene. For your patience, I'll call the meeting back to order. I've had a request from the audience. Some of our audio is not coming through for those who are hard of hearing, so if we can make sure that we talk into the microphone and make sure everybody can hear what's going on, that'd be much appreciated. I spoke earlier at the beginning of the meeting, and we've had some people join us, so as we go into presentation, we're going to go into a public meeting, but same thing applies. Everybody's here to have their say during presentations and delegations and at the public meeting. It is a chance for people to have input on items, so I would ask everybody to be respectful, refrain from any cheering, booing, or any sort of comment when someone's speaking. We want everybody to feel comfortable giving their opinion on these items, and so everybody will have their opportunity going forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Graves and for a comment on to bring the public meeting to order, please.
Normally we have, yeah. Yeah.
So I will now declare this public meeting to be open. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting held under Planning Act to consider proposed amendments to Consolidated Zoning Bylaw 044160. Any person in attendance, including those participating virtually, may make a presentation to council in support or opposition to the zone change applications. Individuals who wish to receive the decision of council on any application being considered this evening must sign the record outside of council chambers or submit a written request to the attention of the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at daniellerichard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss any appeal under subsection 25 if an appellant has not provided counsel with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a bylaw is passed under this section. The application to be heard this evening concerns application ZN 6-24-02, 155 King Street East, applicant Astro Homes Limited. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest on this application to be considered? Seeing none. Has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the application that has not been noted on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you. I now request Planner Justin Miller to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested zoning amendment, please. Welcome.
Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. As the mayor said, my name is Justin Miller. You haven't seen me before, and I'm not really familiar with your process, so if I'm too brief, I like to keep things brief. Let me know and I can go through some more details for you. It's a pretty straightforward application, so I'll move along with it. If you have any questions, if it's not something you're used to, I'm sure you'll let me know. So as I said, this is application ZN 6-2402 in the name of Astro Homes. The subject lands are described as part lots 3 to 5, block 50, plan 279 in the town of Ingersoll. The lands are located on the north side of King Street East between Daniel Street and Morrison Avenue and are municipally known as 155 King Street East. The subject lands are designated low-density residential in the County of Oxford's official plan and are zoned R1 in the town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw. The application here is to rezone them to special residential type 2, so R2 with a special provision to recognize the reduced frontage that the applicants are asking for. An application for zone change has been made to rezone the subject lands from residential type 1 to residential type 2 special, which will become R230, to facilitate the redevelopment of the subject lands for 2 semi-detached dwellings with a total of 4 units. So 2 physical buildings, 2 units in each of them for 4 units. The special provision is requested to permit a minimum lot frontage of 8.9 meters, where the R2 zone provision typically requires 9 meters. The application is related to severance applications that were conditionally approved on June 6, 2024 by the Oxford County Land Division Committee. These severances are intended to establish 4 separately conveyable lots, 1 for each proposed dwelling unit. Based on the applicant's sketch, the conditionally approved severances all appear to meet the minimum zone provisions of the R2 zone, with the exception of the minor deviation of the frontage that I previously mentioned. So as you can see, if I can swim to the plate there. So existing on the current subject land, we're a single detached dwelling with a number of out structures. I believe that most of those things have been removed, as well as a number of trees. And the applicant is proposing 2 semi-detached dwellings as shown on the applicant's sketch is plate 3, and staff are recommending that the council of the town of Ingersoll receive report CP 24-332 as information. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments to make concerning the application? Oh, sorry, I'm just going to have to ask you to come up to the microphone, just so we have it on record. It's, yeah, thank you. And just state your name for the record, please.
Say my name. My name's Subisi Kumar, and the applicant has nothing to say.
Thank you very much. I will now open the meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before a report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward for a decision at a subsequent council meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so now by coming forward to the lectern and stating their name and address for the public record. Are there any comments from the public? I'll ask again. Seeing none. Members of council now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Questions of council, please. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I guess maybe to the planner, possibly to the owner. So you had mentioned, Justin, that they had removed a number of trees. I'm not sure if that would fall under our tree planting policy, where they would be responsible for replanting 3 trees for every 1 tree that they removed.
So through the chair to the councillor, I don't believe that Ingersoll's tree bylaw considers those types of trees as removal. I'm certainly not the expert in Ingersoll tree removal. This is my first application with that. But no comments were received with the application regarding that type of thing. There was a question from a member of the public regarding trees that was answered, and the applicant said he intended to keep as many trees as he could, but some have come down since then.
Mr. Graves, is there further comment on that?
Yeah, we do typically try to enforce that through the, even though this is a planning process, we do try to provide some documentation. They may not be able to provide 3 to 1 trees for when they've cut down, so they may have to pay into a portion of them, but we will be trying to submit that comment through this planning process.
Thank you. Further questions of the report from council? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then this public meeting for the application is now concluded. So I will ask one more time, is there anybody from the public who would like to make comment? Council? Okay, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. After approvals, if this is approved, did you know what the timeline for building is? Reason for that is, I know we have a few that have been approved and they're still not started into being built. So just wondering what the timeline is.
We've been planning to start it like next month. My name is Kumar Anamale. We've been planning to start for next month. Oh. Yes. So we could finish it up in maybe in less than 1 year. Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last call one more time. Seeing none, the application will now be scheduled to come before council at a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. As a reminder, if any members of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of council in respect of any zoning bylaw amendments, they must submit a written request to the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at daniellerichard@ingersoll.ca. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. The Planning Act provides an appeal for an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal from a decision made by the town of Ingersoll within 20 days of the issuing of the decision of notice. Only specified persons, public bodies, registered owners of land to which the plan may apply, the requester to amend the plan, and the minister may appeal the decision of the town of Ingersoll to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Excluding the minister, any party wishes to make an appeal must have made written or oral submissions to the council at a public meeting. And those are recent changes to the Planning Act. So please note that third parties, anyone who is not a specified person or public body, do not have the right to appeal the decision for an official plan amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So, with that, I will call on Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives Planners Report 2024-232 as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. With that, that concludes our public meetings, and we will now go to delegations and presentations. Our first presentation for Mr. Ben Lampkin has been removed due to communications issues. Unfortunately, Mr. Lampkin is out of the country at this time. We will now move to, we have a request that requires majority approval, and I think we can do those all at once. That's items 17, 18, 19, and 20. Ingersoll NBC Hockey League, Ingersoll Old Timers League, West Oxford Inferno League, and Woodstock Wildcats. Is there a motion from council to allow those delegations? Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson. Discussion on those? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So I'll now call upon our first delegation, which is Ingersoll Minor Hockey. I will remind all the delegations that you do have 10 minutes to present to council, and I will keep it very fair this evening because we have a number of delegations. And afterwards, there is the ability to have questions from council.
Is all good?
So if you could just welcome, and if you could just state your name and who you're representing, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. My name's Jason Graham. I'm the president of Ingersoll Minor Hockey. And first I want to apologize for not wearing a suit jacket because I was told I didn't really have to tonight, but that was the earlier comment, so I just thought I'd get it out there now. So the reason why I'm here is ice allocation. Ice in Ingersoll, as you're aware, is very, very in need of all associations, whether it be minor sport, adult, whatever it is. The biggest concern right now is what I'm hearing is that we have two associations that are wanting to come back to Ingersoll to gain ice from the prime users, one being Ingersoll Minor Hockey. With the ice right now being as limited as what it is, we've done the same thing as some of these other associations trying to gain ice from outside our center because we're in need of it. One of the centers have already come back to us and told us that there's no way we can have ice because we're not part of that municipality. I understand that looking at the numbers from the report that there's so much of a percentage of kids from Ingersoll playing on these teams. But again, when you're signing up for an association, you know where your home association is going to be. Our home association is Ingersoll, and Woodstock, West Oxford. Woodstock is Woodstock, which they already have 3 arenas. We don't have that capability here in Ingersoll. West Oxford has 2 arenas up in Thamesford and in Embro, which we now have no access to because we've been denied the 4 hours. So that's the reason why I'm here, is just trying to stress that without the ice that we have allocated right now, we've only requested the same ice that we had last year. If we could get more, hey, if skating club wanted to turn stuff back or men's hockey, we're all for it. And we're willing to work with other associations, but to sit there and take the ice away from us, I don't want to be the one to have to tell participants that we're going to have to turn them away and go elsewhere this year because of the lost ice. And that's where I can see this going. If we do lose more ice, I believe it's going to happen. So, questions?
Thank you. Questions of the delegation? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, through you. Thank you very much for coming. It's very helpful to have this dialogue for the community. I'm wondering if you could explain the relationship between Ingersoll Minor Hockey and South Oxford Storm, and how you allocate the ice between the local league and the rep teams.
Well, to give you the big one sentence, we had to do it. The OMHA has already told us that B-level hockey is what our center is going by the wayside. It's going to be A for competitive and no more B, C, D hockey. So we felt that at the time it was best to start doing it early as opposed to waiting so that we cannot amalgamate with other centers. We did approach other centers. Those centers kind of told us to no. Tillsonburg was the one that we were in negotiations for quite a while. We did at that time, prior to amalgamating, we spoke to town indicating what our intentions were because of the fact that we would now be having to go in between the two centers. If we did not amalgamate at that time, or last year is when it happened, if we were still a B rep team for the next year as B hockey diminishes, we'd still need that ice, the extra ice that we're allocating to the rep program as well as our local league. So hopefully that answers your question there.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, follow up.
Thank you. Just to follow up, so between the local league and the rep teams, how do you divide the ice between those two groups of people?
Well, typically what happens is that we try and make it 50-50 if we can. If for some instances where our rep teams may be away at tournaments, then local league players do get more ice, vice versa. We did have last year where we had to burn some ice because of the snowstorm. And unfortunately, we can't, the arena closed anyways, which was good, but we still had to burn that ice, which we don't like doing. So that's, in regards to the number or how we split it, that's typically what happens.
Councillor Van Koop-Bosens.
Can you, thank you and welcome. Can you tell me how many hours do each team typically play? Like, is it 1 game, 2 games, 1 hour of practice, 2 hour practice? How many, and do you know how many teams are within your league at this point in time? Within the house league?
Within local league?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but typically it should be 1 home game, 1 practice a week. And then possibly, sorry, Tracy, can you answer that one? Because she's the one that would know the best out of this as the ice scheduler.
I'm Tracy Vanderwerf. I'm the ice scheduler with Ingersoll Minor Hockey, so I'll try to answer your question. So the local league program, we typically do have a practice and a game a week. Some teams will get a second practice. We are actually, just the past couple years, we've had to do half ice practices because we don't have the ice time to offer full ice practices. So we are putting a lot of the younger kids on the ice at the same time just to kind of optimize our ice usage.
Councillor Van Koop-Bosens, follow up.
Follow up, yeah. Can you tell me how many teams that you have and what the age groups would be? Just so you know, I'm going to ask this question of every league because I think it's information that we should have if we're going to be making decisions. So you all get a chance to, I'm putting Tracy on the spot, but the rest of you get a chance to think about that.
So based on last year, because at this year presently, we don't do U18 or U21 yet until August, but we're planning on having those teams. Last year, we started for local league, we have our
12 teams?
Yes,
Yeah.
we had 12 teams, starting at U6 and going all the way up to U18. And then the rep program starts at U10 and goes up to U21, which was 19, 14.
16, 18, but then you have your Bs.
Yeah.
Yeah. 12?
12? You're catching me off the top of that one, so it's like.
Thank you. Councillor Hallery, please.
Thank you. So how far in advance do you plan these slots and how do you commit to them? Like, do you have to pay in advance or how do you work with us in the traditional, traditional way that you've always advanced?
She can explain that one because she's got it kind of fine.
We do, I do like to have a template, whether we follow it or not. Let me start by the games are scheduled through our association. So Shamrock will schedule, Southern Counties will schedule, they'll give it to us, and then we kind of fill in practices from there based on our ice allocation. So once we have all of that, that is how we're filling the gaps, the holes. And then we can cancel 7 days out. We do not like to cancel. Everybody will have their schedules in advance. Sometimes coaches can't make it. Sometimes kids are away. They're, playing high school activities, sports. So there's times that happens.
Yeah, so my question is, how do you make that commitment by paying for that allotment? and own it, and then you do whatever with your schedule, or is it something that we work, or is that a question maybe for Kyle?
Well, in the ice allocation policy, there is a cancellation that we do follow, so.
It's 7 days then.
Kyle, is that something that you could
Yeah.
provide?
I'm not
sure if I'm understanding your question.
My question is, when these teams actually book their time slots, are they committing financially to those time slots and then own them?
So they request them at the beginning of the year. Typically, we don't have to come here because everything can get sorted out. But they make the request at the beginning of the year. We make a schedule based around those requests. Then as ice time as they get their ice time, they are billed monthly against what the schedule is.
So as it is, they've already scheduled their allocation for September?
Once we have a schedule, then they have their allocations for the whole year.
Yeah. We haven't got anything yet, so that's what we're in hold. So right now, without the allocation being given, we went based on our teams for this year on last year's ice. But until we get allocation, we can't commit to those teams, so we've had to put registration for some of the teams on hold right now.
Further questions of the delegation? Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Back to the South Oxford storm, what is the percentage, do you have a percentage of Ingersoll residents that play and other percentages of other residents from other municipalities as well?
Well, right now, based on this year, we have about 30% kids playing in South Oxford without the two teams at U18 and U21.
So 30%, okay.
So 30% out of the, is it 100 and?
So is that on top of this question for Kyle, because you sent through participants and then percentage of Ingersoll residents spreadsheet, just a short one, and it was 245 registered participants?
That includes their.
That includes the storm?
Yes,
Okay.
that includes our South Oxford storm
Okay.
members.
All right,
So
perfect.
I didn't include any other except for Ingersoll residents, because it's what I was told.
Okay. So do you know where the other players are domiciled, what municipality they come from?
Well, Tillsonburg.
Okay.
Mount Elgin, Salford. We have some that are NRP players, which are they could be from Elmer, Northwood, Thamesford. So it's, the majority, it would be split down right now because of Tillsonburg and Delhi and that, so.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens and then Councillor Haller, please.
Thank you. When you gave me the 12 and 10 for the number of kids, was the 10, I just want to make sure I got this right, was the 10, U10 to U21, that was the rep teams, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, our
I was just going to ask you about rep teams, and then I went, Christie, they gave you the local and rep at the same time, so thank you.
Sorry.
Appreciate that, thanks.
Councillor Haller, please.
Yeah, thank you. So follow-up question is, I noticed that most of your teams are basically in proximity. So are you able to leave, like you're saying, Southwest Oxford, Salford, and are you able to,
Salford doesn't have any, we have players from Salford.
Yeah,
Salford doesn't have a team.
Okay, so what I mean is the players coming from around.
Yeah.
Does that allow you then, because you're kind of consolidating, to get more ice time elsewhere and have people come for competitions and you go for competitions, or does it keep us in-house?
I wish it would happen that way, believe me, but no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Like I said, we went last year, we had ice in Zora Township, and we were denied the 4 hours this year.
Okay.
Further questions? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, through you. Last one for me. How many hours are South Oxford Storm allocated from Tillsonburg? Like, assuming they must split between the two?
We don't get it, but the older, to be honest, I think the older age groups are down there more than what they're in Ingersoll. In regards to the total amount of ice, I couldn't tell you, because they have South Oxford Storm, Tillsonburg Minor Hockey, and Tillsonburg Girls Hockey, and ringette.
Yeah, figure skating,
Figure skating.
and then their user groups, their adult
So
user
the
groups.
amount of hours down there, I couldn't tell you yet.
We haven't received our allocation from that town of Tillsonburg yet.
Further questions? Just a question for myself. Ingersoll Division Minor Hockey is predominantly a boys' league, but there is girls that play.
Yes.
If a person of any gender chooses to play in Ingersoll minor hockey, that can be accommodated?
Yes.
Okay, but they're not segregated?
We have 15 registered right now, whether it be Ingersoll or South Oxford.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your delegation. Just to keep everything in order, Councillor Hughes, you have a motion to receive the delegation, please.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Ingersoll District Minor Hockey's delegation regarding the 2024-2025 ice allocation as presented by Jason Graham and Tracy Vanderwerth as information.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And I'll call upon our second delegation, which is the Ingersoll Skating Club, please. Welcome. If you could state your name for the record.
Okay. Hi, my name is Carrie Butterworth, and I'm on the Ingersoll Skating Club board. I'm also one of their professional coaches. This is Tracy Moulin. She is also a board member for over 10 years, and she's also a parent of one of our skaters. I'm here to talk about Ingersoll Skating Club and the ice allocation for that. Just a little bit of backstory, history. Last year we had a membership total of 173 skaters, 109 of which were from Ingersoll. We also had skaters from 15 other local communities, and the age range of our skaters from 2 to 69, and many skaters skate multiple days, and we offer many different sessions to accommodate the need for the multiple days of skating. We have different programs from our Can Skate program, Learn to Skate, Power Skate, to our Star Skate sessions. Many of our skaters from those programs go on to hockey, ringette, speed skating, as well as pursuing figure skating professionally, either in ice shows or by becoming professional coaches such as myself. We've also had skaters compete provincially, nationally, and internationally, representing our town. One local you may all know is Ella Shelton. She started in power skating.
With us. The power skating is one of the programs that was fairly new. We introduced it last year as there was a need in the town for it. No one else was offering it. We have brought in a certified Can Power coach. It was very popular last year, and we certainly hope to carry that on, but we need the ice time to do that.
Okay. When skaters reach a certain level, they do require individual one-on-one lessons to focus on the different disciplines of the Star Skate program. This means that they do require a certain amount of ice time to practice all aspects. And figure skating, for the most part, for what we offer at our club, is mostly an individual sport, even though we do have one synchro team that we have. The nature of the Skate Canada program requirements that we do have to follow their guidelines based on how many skaters are allowed to be on a session for the insurance, safety, and for their overall benefit from the program. Our programs cannot run without professional coaches. We have to listen to what Skate Canada says, and any Skate Canada ice has to have professional coaches on it. We do have a few skaters from neighboring communities that skate here, as they do not get enough ice time at their own home clubs, and they make sure that they have to coordinate their schedules to match what our schedule is. Many of our professional coaches do the same thing. They coach in multiple clubs, and in March is when we typically get and plan for the coming season. So if we had to go with another day, we would likely lose coaches, and our sessions can't run without us. Okay, so the ice that we are wishing to keep, we want to keep the exact same as what we had last year. Sundays, 1 o'clock till 6:20, Wednesdays, 4 o'clock to 8:55, and Saturdays, 11 o'clock to 3:50. We plan to start September 14th, whenever the arena decides to open, and we plan to run until March 28th. Again, we try to work with the arena when they want to stay open until. And we are also happy to accommodate for the weekends that hockey requests for their tournaments. And over the past 4 years, our club has grown from 107 registrants to 173. So our club can't grow without the ice time that we offer. We're not trying to get any more ice. We would like to keep what we have. Thanks for listening to our concerns.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Questions from council? Councillor Halleru and then Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So question, you said for the past 4 years, you've been doing you had about 107, and you've grown from that to 173.
Yeah.
Has that been the same timeline that you've maintained all through these 4 years, like on average?
The same ice schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, our
We've
ice
had the
hasn't
same.
changed.
No, so it's consistently every family knows this is ice time for you guys?
And they plan around that because a lot of our skaters that are teenagers have other activities. So they know that they can count on Wednesdays and Saturdays or Sundays with us, and then they can plan their other activities around that, or their part-time jobs. They just know what our ice time is.
And in total, how long have you used the arena?
We have 15.5 hours a week.
And for how long?
Ingersoll Skating Club's been around for 70 years.
And you've been using the same arena for?
Yeah, the same arena. And we've had the same ice time basically for
as long as I've been part
about
of the club.
40 years.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, through you. Welcome, ladies. So there's obviously 60 outside of Ingersoll members. What municipalities do they come from?
So we have skaters from Beachville, Burgessville, Cortland, Dorchester, Embro, London, Malahide, Mossley, Mount Elgin, Putnam, Salford, St. Thomas, Thamesford, Thorndale, and Woodstock. So we have a pretty wide range.
So Southwest Oxford, Zora as well, okay. Now, are those the members that you talk about that can't get enough ice time on their own?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, some of those are small communities like Beachville.
Yeah, Southwest
So
does
we've
not have
chosen,
any.
my son is from Beachville and he skates. We've chosen
Mhm.
to skate in Ingersoll.
Right, yeah, and Southwest Oxford doesn't
Mhm.
have any arenas. Okay, all right, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
Welcome, ladies. Thank you for coming. You'd said that your ages go from whenever can skate starts as what, 4, 5?
2.
2, okay. So you said that there's a lot of one-on-one lessons. So your membership has increased to 173. So are you able to give me what the numbers were for last year that were in the younger ages? Because is there a certain age that one-on-one lessons start, and therefore obviously only one skater then per ice time, is what I'm understanding then?
No, so what it is the skaters get one-on-one lesson time with the coaches. So typically there's between 9 to 15 skaters on the ice sharing the ice time. And we pull the skaters for individual lessons. And that's where the one-on-one comes from. So our numbers for like more group lessons, so can skate, we had a total of 46 skaters. Junior is still a group lesson, but that's typically where they start to get the one-on-one private lessons. Last year we had 9 skaters, and the higher levels that we had a total of 24 skaters. And we also had other programs like Learn to Skate. We had 24 skaters on that session. Parent and Taught, that allows the parents on the ice with the skaters, and we had 25 registrations for that. Power Skating, our new program that we offered, we had 37 registrations, and that's where we get the total of 173.
I was glad that you threw those last numbers in, because I'm like, okay, we're not getting up to 173 here, so where are you going? So
Yep.
thank you, appreciate that.
Councillor Hughes, please.
thank you. I did have another thing. I'm not a skater.
Okay.
What's power skating?
Power skating, it takes the fundamentals of hockey,
Mhm.
and it is by a certified power skating instructor. So it's taking more fundamentals of hockey. A lot of the skaters that participate in that, they mostly do hockey.
So that's more of a
It's
hockey-focused,
a more hockey-driven program.
okay,
Yes.
understand.
And it was quite popular last year.
Yeah.
And I
Well, with
expect it should be this
37,
year.
yes.
Yeah,
I
and it
expect it
was-
would be this year, too. Word of mouth gets around.
What did you, so that's 2 hours on a Sunday, is it, that you?
Sunday.
So what'd you do with that 2 hours previously?
That was synchro.
Synchro used that ice previously, and we gained an hour last year. We had it originally until 5:30, and we requested until 6:20 to accommodate our new program.
Okay.
The synchro team still does want ice.
Yeah.
So we're trying to fit everybody in. We're not at all asking for more ice, we just want the
No,
same
I understand,
ice.
yeah, yeah. And we get the choice, or the opportunity to try and figure this all out. Thank you.
Question for you. What is the demographic makeup of your skaters? What is percentage between boys and girls, would you say?
Probably about 50-50.
Okay.
We had a lot of boys on the Sunday can skate session where we had more girls, and the girls more do the star skate, but we have one boy representing our star skate program. But it is about 50-50 if you put all the skater numbers together.
And as far as makeup of the community, are you seeing a change in the makeup of the skaters? Are we getting newer Canadians that are looking to join?
Yes, yes, we are starting to see that, and we're very happy to see that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Councillor Hallaroot, I believe you have a resolution, please.
Thank you. Through your mayor, moved by myself, Councillor Hallaroot, seconded by Councillor Beckett and Boston's, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Ingersoll Skating Club's delegation regarding the 2024-25 ice allocation as presented by Carrie Butterworth and Tracy Mullen as information.
Thank you very much. Is discussion on that? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll now move on to our third delegation, which is the Ingersoll NBC Hockey League, please. Representative would like to come forward. I believe they're being represented by Jeff Van Nierek, if I have that right?
Niekirk.
Niekirk. Duly noted, thank you.
It's okay. It's not the first time somebody's gotten it wrong. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Petrie and members of council for allowing me this opportunity. My name is Jeff Van Niekirk and I live at 7 William Street in Ingersoll. I'm the vice president of the NBC Friday Night Hockey League for almost 50 years, since 1977, a year before I was born. The NBC has rented 5 hours of ice from the town of Ingersoll, taking only a break for COVID. We have 128 players in our league, approximately 72% of which are residents of Ingersoll. Fees are paid upfront, and we take ice times that are not feasible for other leagues. We pay 2 refs 5 hours with competitive wages and a student timekeeper. Altering our ice by even 1 hour would reduce our entire league ice time effectively by 25%. We play 2 30-minute runtime periods, and our league runs with 2 goalies per team, 1 each period. Structuring our league the way it does gives both goalies the warm-up they need, along with all of our other players. Our players range in age from 25 to 70 and have seen generations of single families pass through our league. By losing an hour, we also lose the benefit of different start times. An advantage in our league is the occasional early start time to offset another game with a late start time. It is in our opinion that changing anything in our structure would lead to the collapse of our league in Ingersoll. This league plays a very important part in the health of our players, both mentally and physically. My wife and I have been residents of Ingersoll for 10 years. We have 3 young children together, aged 9, 6, and 4. My eldest is medically complex with an Apert syndrome diagnosis since birth. He has 9 surgeons at LHSC and he's having his 6th surgery this summer and has a significant developmental delay with numerous therapists throughout southwestern Ontario. Unfortunately, my wife Allison is in the final stages of a terminal metastatic breast cancer diagnosis. She is only expected to be with us for a few short months. We are hoping that she will make it to see our daughter start junior kindergarten at Laurie Hawkins. Sorry. I'm a goaltender for the NBC and have been since 2019. For the last 3 years of my wife's diagnosis, the NBC has been my place to find respite from the high demands my family requires. I love this league. We redraft every year, so no one plays on the same team, and we all get to know each other. Coming from Barrie and not knowing anyone, I've become close with these players and take much pride in my efforts to backstop the teams I play for and represent the executive. This league is essential to maintaining balance in my life. I'm sure many of our players feel the same way. We understand the need for equality in sport and that this is lacking in girls hockey especially. We respect the need for more ice time for the West Oxford Inferno and Woodstock Wildcats, but I understand from the report that the Inferno gave up ice time in recent years. Who is to say that doesn't happen again in future years as rosters change and parents decide which leagues their children belong in? I also understand the Wildcats have 72 players from Ingersoll, but are they all on the same team? From what I can tell online, they have about 20 teams, estimating 17 players per team is 340 players in the league, making only 20% from Ingersoll. We are 72% from Ingersoll and growing. Our waitlist could support 4 more teams. Adult leagues take up about 16% of the ice in Ingersoll. That's all adult leagues, not just ours. To quote Mike Barrie, league president from 2015 to 2022, one day minor ice hockey ends and players want to continue their play into adulthood and need a place to play. That is where leagues such as the Ingersoll NBC Friday Night comes in. In our opinion, the real solution lies with the development of a 2-pad multi-use recreation facility, development that has been discussed since my family moved to town, and we are still discussing it. Please do not change how the NBC Friday Night League has been structured for 50 years. It is a key part to men's health in Ingersoll, and hopefully soon for our children's health as they age out of minor programs and join the NBC. This concludes my comments, Your Worship. Thank you for your time and the time of council.
Thank you very much. Questions of council? I have a question for you. Is the NBC, it's a male-only league, it's not...
Currently, it's a male-only league that John, have we ever had any females request?
Female apply, but we don't have any rules on the side.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions of council? Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, please.
I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, Jeff, or not, but thank you for coming. And I know that you play until 11 o'clock. Your adults would...
Till 12.
You do play till 12?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 7 to 8,
Our
8
last-
to 9, 9 to 10?
It's 7, and then we play an hour. So it's 7 to 8, and then they flood. And then the next one starts at 8:30. Is that right? Did I get that right? 8:15, sorry, 8:15, and then 9:30 and 10:45.
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand that.
No, that's
correctly.
okay. There's a flood in there.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Further questions of the delegation? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, you have a resolution, please.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives Ingersoll NBC Hockey League's delegation regarding the 2024-25 ice allocation as presented by Jeff Van Niekerk as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And now I will call upon the Oxford and West Oxford Inferno League, please. And they are being, oh, sorry, Ingersoll Old Timers League. I apologize. You're on deck. We'll go inter sports here.
Thank you, Council, for hearing me. I'm Rich Swatsy, representing the Ingersoll Old Timers. Just to give you a little bit of history, we've been around for over 40 years. I have not played the whole time. Right now, our ice time is from 9:15 until 9:15 until 10:45. At one time, I don't know how far back, we were pushed back from an 8:30 time start to a 9:15. We are not here asking for more ice time. We're here just asking to keep our ice time. But a little bit more history. We include players that are business owners in town. We also include Ella Shelton's father, Warren Shelton, brother Max Shelton, brother Jesse Shelton, and Uncle Chris Shelton. During COVID, Ella Shelton skated with the Ingersoll Old Timers prior to trying out for the Canadian Olympic team, prior to becoming the first goal scorer for the PWHL. Coincidence? I don't think so. Players do include many Ingersoll minor hockey and West Oxford. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my own writing here. Ingersoll minor hockey and Inferno former coaches and present coaches, trainers, and parents. And at this time too, so to give you the basis of what our team is, we're the Ingersoll Old Timers, and we exchange ice times with other towns around in the area. It's hour and a half ice time each time. We pay for a ref to come on and coach us, and same thing, we will travel to other centers and play, and we exchange ice times. And it's over 20 centers, and we'll travel as far as Listowel, there's Woodstock we go into that has a couple teams, Tillsonburg has a couple teams. We have one team. We go into London for a few teams, and there are other centers that we do travel to. I just can't think of all of them off the top of my head. For over 40 years, we've been a loyal customer. We do pay up front, and we always have a constant influx of new old timers coming in. So ourselves, we have a roster of probably about 20 plus players. So we probably could field another team, but we've never actually asked for more ice time at this point. And what we do too with the old timers, we kind of provide a closure of the hockey loop here in Ingersoll. I can't give you numbers on how many of us are from Ingersoll, but I'd say a pretty good chunk of us are from Ingersoll. I know a couple are from Thamesford, but I can't give you a true percentage on what we are. So we close that loop because we got guys that have gone through and played through the Ingersoll Minor Hockey Association. They've been parents through it, they've coached through it, and then they've got a place to play. We haven't made it to the NHL, so we end up here in the Old Timers League playing. Okay? And just to touch on the men's mental health, because what it's done, we actually were able to stay open during COVID because we were able to maintain that 50 skater, that bubble of 50 players. And it provides us that outlet, that relief, that stress relief, and that camaraderie that we all need in times that we go through as we go through life itself in general. Minor hockey. I'm not here to bash minor hockey. Minor hockey is very, very important. We've all played it, we've all coached it, we've all had kids in it. I'm in somewhat of a unique position, I think a lot of us are, where I've coached in Ingersoll minor hockey, I've coached in West Oxford Inferno, I've had kids playing both, and I've had daughters skate with the Ingersoll Skating Club, and I'm playing for the Old Timers now as it is. Minor hockey is important, I get it, and it's great that we're booming, it's great that it's growing, we want to see that, but it does ebb and flow. As far as us and even the NBC, we've stayed consistent, and we're not going anywhere. We're only growing. I know NBC could probably use a couple more hours, but we're not asking for more ice time. So we're a consistent customer for you guys, and we pay up front. And as far as minor hockey is important, Ingersoll, Woodstock, I understand they have the need for the ice time. But that's Woodstock. They need to address that, just as Ingersoll, we're addressing our minor hockey with that. So hopefully that's what we're here to do. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them, but that's for all I have to say.
Questions of council. Councillor Van Koop-Boston, please.
Hi, Rich. Thanks
Hi.
for coming.
No problem.
The percentage for Ingersoll, is it something that you could get back to us with?
Yeah.
Because we would want to know, again, we've been asking that question of everybody, so
Sure.
I understand you don't have it with you tonight, but if you could get back to us. Do you know if anybody's on after you? Would it be possible for you to skate later if given the opportunity in that respect?
That's a great question. Sorry, I meant to address that. I believe there is not anyone on after us, but at this point, if we do get bumped back, because I know in the proposal, or at least the document that came out, one of your solutions was to bump us back to 10:30. At that time, we would not have opponents to play against. I think a lot of the players on our team wouldn't play. That's just from 10:30 till midnight. It's too late. Like I said, we're already bumped back once. I'm not sure when that happens prior to my time, from 8:30 to 9:15. But that 9:15 pumping us back to 10:30, it just would not work. Other teams would not come travel here to play against us, and I think we would lose a large percentage of our existing team. It's just too late.
Thank you.
No problem.
Councilor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Question, you used a terminology, exchange ice times. Can you explain that to me?
So to give an example, our home ice, which we all know is Wednesdays 9:15 to 10:45. And we just, because we've been around so long, we have a communication network with teams like Tillsonburg. Tillsonburg, off the top of my head, I know they have a Friday night ice time. So we'll say Tillsonburg B will play you on this date in Tillsonburg, and then come back on this date and you'll play us in Ingersoll. So we play each team twice, a home and away. And like I said, there's close to 15, 20 teams that we do this. And it kind of rotates through the year. Some years we lose a couple because some of them just their ice times are too late, or some of the teams just are not congenial. But then we gain a few extra teams. But we always consistently play a 40-plus game schedule.
Okay. Follow up? So you're playing every Wednesday night at 9:15?
Correct.
Okay.
Halleru, please.
Thank you, through your name. So the 16% we heard of as the population of adults playing hockey, you are included in that as well?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? The old timers have the same question as to the last delegation. Is there any restriction against women playing in your league?
No.
Okay. Do you have currently, do you have any current diversity there? Or?
We do not. At this time, it's all men.
Okay.
But there are no restrictions, no.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, you have a resolution, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the Ingersoll Old Timers Hockey League delegations regarding the 2024-25 ice allocation as presented by Rich Susie as information.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now I'll call upon West Oxford Inferno, please. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. My name is Kelly Ratcliffe. I'm the West Oxford Inferno Secretary, and this is Sherry Simmers. She's West Oxford Inferno's Vice President. Okay. Honorable Mayor Petrie, esteemed town councilors, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be heard this evening. We wish to be clear from the outset that we have no interest as an association in displacing legitimate local user groups, and we fully understand that there is insufficient ice available to accommodate all user group requests. We are not interested in displacing any of the other local associations represented here, and we wholeheartedly support any association truly local to Ingersoll being prioritized in terms of ice allocation. We are here this evening not to ask you to displace qualified local groups, but rather in asking you to include Inferno as a priority local user group going forward. We genuinely appreciate you giving us the chance to respond to report CS-017-24 and hope this presentation will clarify a few points. Firstly, we feel it important to clarify for Council the history and status of our association, given that our status has been the subject of rumors in the community. In September of 2016, the West Oxford Girls Hockey Association was created out of the amalgamation of the Zora Fusion Girls Hockey and the Ingersoll Ice Girls Hockey. It may be worth noting that the Ingersoll Ice was the first hockey home of Ella Shelton, who, as you are all aware, scored the first goal in PWHL history. Since its inception, West Oxford has proudly represented both Zora and Ingersoll with approximately even membership numbers from each center. These percentages have remained roughly stable, with around 45% of members coming from each township and the remaining 10% coming from players living outside of our association's territory, usually Dorchester, Woodstock, and London. West Oxford has ensured a strong community presence in Ingersoll throughout the years. Large number of players, coaches, and administrators participate annually in the Ingersoll Santa Claus Parade and run important charity fundraising efforts in the community. The majority of the Inferno executive resides in Ingersoll, and executive meetings are held at the Ingersoll Pharmacave across the street. West Oxford is proud to have had long-standing local sponsorships in Ingersoll, including sponsorships from Ingersoll Pharmacave, Fairbanks West End Automotive, Earth Power, Ingersoll Kiwanis Club, and of course Carmouze, who has been a major association sponsor from the very beginning of Inferno. As to the content of report number CS-017-24, we feel it is important to provide some context. The report states that, quote, they, West Oxford Inferno, recently gave up their ice time in Ingersoll, end quote. We accept, as an association, that we should have accepted these ice times offered, regardless of the times they represented, which were, for the record, limited to Friday evenings. We do feel it is important to clarify that after many years of ice times that included prime time weeknight times and late Sunday afternoon times, the last offer that was made to Inferno was for Friday evenings from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., and that was in the 2021-2022 season. We do not know what led to our ice time being cut so drastically, nor being limited to Friday nights, but our honest hope is to simply move forward and reestablish a positive working relationship with those responsible for ice allocation. Since 2022-2023, and despite our requests for ice in subsequent seasons, we were denied consideration for ice time. During the 2023-24 season, our logos and bulletin boards were simply stripped from the arena with no discussion or warning. Several of our players were present as their logos were removed from behind the benches while they were in the arena playing for their high school teams. We are not aware of the reasons for this decision, but we were certainly privy to rumors circulating that our association no longer existed and had gone bankrupt. We can assure you that Inferno is financially stable and is in fact growing, feeding off of a very successful season in 2023-2024, where we finished the season with a provincially ranked, #1 ranked U18 team, a combined 6 tournament championships, and the launch of a much-loved Fundamentals Fire Starters program. Inferno is working very hard at rebuilding our association from the bottom up. We have been at local school spring fairs and community gatherings promoting our programs. We would very much appreciate the opportunity to be present on the ice in Ingersoll for whatever small amount of time you may be able to make available in order to show this community what we have to offer. Our request to council is to recognize that West Oxford Girls Hockey Association is the local girls hockey association. In our mind, the request of a neighboring association to be on equal footing as the local Girls Hockey Association is inappropriate. It is no different from our association claiming that we have right to equal footing for ice allocation in Dorchester, Elmer, or London just because some of our players live there. In fact, in terms of percentages, we have a similar number of members playing with Inferno that are residents of the neighbor association seeking ice in Ingersoll. In our opinion, the argument that 72 girls were forced to travel outside of the home city to play hockey is incorrect. We are willing to concede that Inferno does not provide AA, A or double B girls hockey, and we accept that we are unlikely to have the numbers allowing us to do so. We are willing to concede that for players at the truly elite level, we do not have the appropriate hockey home to offer. We accept that players at this level are better served in seeking a larger association, such as the London Devilettes, who regularly put AA teams on the ice. However, Inferno has always and will always be willing to provide a home for B, C, and House League hockey. Of the 72 girls that were supposedly forced to travel out of their town and play with a neighboring association, any one of them that plays B, C, or House League level hockey could in fact be playing in Ingersoll with Inferno. These players made a choice to play outside of their hometown and were in no way forced to do so. We would encourage council to look further into these 72 addresses, as we are under the impression that these are not, in fact, Ingersoll addresses, but IDCI catchment basin addresses. If the true measure is that of IDCI catchment basin, Inferno's numbers rise from the 41% that we reported to 68% of our members. Inferno is happy to share the addresses of our membership with council. Mayor Petrie and esteemed members of council, we are not here tonight to pick a fight, but we are here to stand up for our local associations, including but not limited to ours, who deserve to be prioritized for ice time. We are here to ask council to support your grassroots local girls hockey association by helping us to be considered a local user group once again. We would appreciate any opportunity to return to our rightful home on the ice in Ingersoll and to see our logo proudly displayed once again behind the bench at the Ingersoll Arena. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure I stopped the timer so it didn't go off again. Questions from council. Councillor Hallerud, please.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. How many, like the questions asked before, of your membership reside in Ingersoll?
So that's kind of what we said in the report. So if you're asking how many are taxpayers' children, 41%.
41%.
If you're asking how many are in IDCI's catchment area, it's 68%.
Okay.
Questions of council? Councillor Van Kootenbos, then Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. How many teams do you have right now, and how much ice do they play at this point?
So we have 8 teams, and so our U15 and U8 teams are going to get an hour and a half time slots. So I'm not able to calculate that quickly in my head, but there are 3 or 4 of those teams that will be half ice teams, and the rest are full ice teams.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you. Welcome, ladies. Where do you, what do you consider your home arena now? Where do you play most often?
It's pretty much equally split between Thamesford and Embro.
So basically up in Zora.
Yep. Yeah, because it's the Zora Fusion and Ingersoll Ice amalgamated.
Right.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hallerud, please.
Thank you. So through you, Mayor, you're saying that you used to have Friday nights. Are you saying you no longer do Friday nights at all in Ingersoll?
So the year that we were offered the Friday nights was at the very beginning of our rebuilding of our association, and we only had older teams. And all of a sudden, we were offered Friday nights. That wasn't what we had had before. So kind of like the skating club had said, a lot of our older girls have part-time jobs, and they had already committed to the times that they would have then been asked to completely change their schedules to now accommodate a new ice time on Friday night. That would no longer be an issue for us. We do have those younger teams again. But like I say, back then, a couple of years ago, it just wasn't an option for us, and we didn't want to accept it and then have ice that everyone's clearly clamoring for being empty. Obviously, we didn't realize that that was going to slam the door and we were never going to be, able to come back in. So if we could change that, we would change it.
Yes, absolutely we would.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, welcome. Through the mayor, so you mentioned you have U15 and U18 teams. I don't know if you have one or two of each. What other divisions do you project having teams for this coming season?
So fundamentals, U7, U9, and U11. And then also our U15 and U18.
And senior.
And 2 senior teams.
Thank you. And another question through the mayor. I don't want the response to be accusatory. I'm just curious around the IDCI catchment. I've never heard people using the high school as the determining factor for where the residents are coming from. So I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on what you mean by that.
So, for instance, I grew up with an Ingersoll address, but I lived in Zora Township. So my address was Ingersoll, but my parents' tax money did not come to Ingersoll. So just because there are several girls who have left our association, so I know where they live, and I'm assuming that they're lumped in that number of 72. And a lot of those that I am aware of personally, I certainly do not know all 72 of them, do not pay tax to Ingersoll. Like, I have family members that are some of them. So that's kind of where, when we did our Zora allotment, they asked about the catchment areas. So that's kind of where those numbers came from, and that's why we know those numbers. So yeah.
Councilor Van Koop-Bostons.
So if I can answer some of that too, at Kiwanis, we use an IDCI encatchment because IDCI encapsulates a lot of them that come from Embro, Thamesford, right? I mean, IDCI has always, we don't look at just the jurisdiction of Ingersoll. For Kiwanis, we'd look at that IDCI encatchment as well. I don't have another question. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for council? I have one. How much ice time do you currently receive in Zora Township?
It hasn't been decided yet.
Yeah.
We don't know.
So I think it actually has been, but honestly, I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. So to clarify, how much
We didn't receive as much as we asked for, so that's why I'm not sure what we actually did receive.
How much did you use last year?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but we also have more teams coming up this year.
Okay. Would you say that the request is more this year than last year?
Yes.
We did request more, but we didn't receive more.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
So if I may, as a follow-up to that, can we request that information come to council then?
100%.
Please? Thank you.
Yep. Further questions? Thank you very much. And I'll call on Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive West Oxford Inferno's delegation regarding the 2024-2025 ice allocation as presented by Sherry Simmers and Kelly Ratcliffe as information.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Let's take it to our last delegation from the Woodstock Wildcats. Welcome.
Here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Bird? No, kidding.
Thank you for welcoming us here tonight. Certainly nice to see that hockey is vibrant in Ingersoll. And I should admit that I do overlap also with many of the organizations here. I've shared ice with the Old Timers as well as NBC. I'm currently on their wait list, hopefully. Oh, I see a nod. And so my name's Rob McKinley. I'm a current director on the board for the Woodstock Wildcats. As much as we can share the claim to Ella Shelton, I live in Southwest Oxford where Ella Shelton is also a resident. So I don't know if there's much left of her after tonight, but there we go. So I just want to share three kind of things from our perspective from Woodstock Wildcats. A lot of it we've heard already. Certainly the first thing is just to communicate that our association has been growing over the last number of years. If we look back to 2018-2019 season, we fielded 13 teams across all age groups from U7 through U18, not including senior teams. And then in 2024-25, we're predicting 20 teams, so an increase of 7 teams over that period of time. And just, I'd like to share a bit of insight in terms of how how girls hockey works as far as regionality. So we're certainly familiar with how OMHA sort of has boundaries associated to which centers you would play your sports at. OWHA, which is the governing body for the Woodstock Wildcats, doesn't have boundaries associated to the region, so athletes are free to choose which association they would like to register for. So certainly, Woodstock Wildcats has enjoyed organic growth from around the county of Oxford. And I mean, the background behind the request is simply to try to accommodate these players that have registered with our association. So currently, all teams that we're predicting we've got them capped and are waitlisted based on availability of ice time. The second thing that I'd just like to share, and I mean we've heard it a lot tonight, 23% of our residents or of our registrations currently reside in Ingersoll, and again, this is what prompts the request that was submitted. And the third thing I'd like to highlight is just representative opportunities for girls hockey and boys hockey in communities, basically just recognizing that currently there are 0 hours allocated to girls hockey in the town of Ingersoll. And just finally to highlight the importance for the importance to have opportunities for young female athletes to compete with and against their peers is something that I think we can all agree is important. So anyway, that's my points. Looks like I got lots of time left. Any questions? Oh, I do have the information regarding our numbers of teams and the ice time, so I'll just get ahead of that. So each team is allotted 2 ice times per week, 2 1-hour, and this is across our association. So 2 ice times per week, 2 home ice times. Rep teams get 1 extra hour every 3 weeks, so that's sort of sporadic. And we have 2 higher level teams that get 1.5 hours ice times, but that's also sporadic. And then across the age groups, we have 3 U9 teams, 4 U11 teams, 5 U13. Oh, sorry, yeah, certainly. Where do you want me to pick up? I'll go back to the beginning. So U9, we have 3 teams. U11, we have 4 teams. U13, we have 5 teams. U15, we have 4 teams. And U18, we have 3 teams. And then we also have a Kittens fund, we call it Kittens, it's a fundamentals program for U7s. And that's one group that gets 1 hour of ice per week, and it's 30 to 40 players. And then we also have a competitive U7 team that that program usually is dependent on ice availability as we see how the schedule looks. So that's a program that we only offer if we have the ice time available. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Questions of council? You're too slow, Christy. Councillor Hughes.
I've never had my last name mispronounced that way before. So obviously you guys play out of Woodstock.
Yep.
What is your total allotment out of Woodstock?
So I can tell you based on what I just said, so I have to do the math, 2 ice times per week per team. So if we have 20 teams.
That's 20 hours.
Yeah. Plus there's a
hours.
handful of extras here and there, right?
Right.
So I'm not certain the exact number, but I can get you that. We can.
Yeah, if you can get that.
We certainly can.
A follow-up. So for the 23%, basically you're looking at sometime possibly here in Ingersoll to accommodate the 23% of the Ingersoll players that you have on your roster?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, listen, I'll be honest, ice time is scarce and we're looking for opportunities to ask for ice where it might make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, frankly, to have this forum tonight with all these groups here is a successful result of that request.
Councillor Van Kouten-Boston,
I
please.
couldn't agree with that more. I think we've learned a lot about every organization, and honestly, I'm glad that it's happened. So I'm not appreciative of the work that I got to do to go along with all this, but that's okay. So I think I missed it. You said U7 to U18. How many were before, and you're at 20 now?
So 13 teams, and 20 before COVID, and 20 teams now.
Okay, and all of those 20 are being accommodated right now? Because you also said something about kids being waitlisted at this point in time?
Yeah, so those teams are being accommodated. I mean, like every association, we're being creative with shared ice times. So there will be cases where there could be 2 17-player teams sharing ice. I mean, we choose smaller bodies than larger bodies to share those ice times. And then certainly the thing that I'm concerned about is our ability to offer that's U7 team. But, I mean, bare bones, yes, we're able to accommodate, we're able to make things work, certainly, with turning players away, to be clear.
Where else have you requested ice time?
So we've requested ice in Zora as well.
You haven't received any?
I believe we've received, just let me confirm, I think we've received two hours from Zora. Friday at 5 and Saturday at 3.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? I guess the good thing about going last is most of the questions are gone. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And council use resolution, please.
Thank you. I'll be looking for a seconder for this motion. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the Woodstock Wildcats Girls Hockey Association delegation regarding the 2024-2025 ice allocation as presented by Robert McKinley as information. And that will be seconded by Councillor Halleru.
Excellent. Discussion. The only one thing I want to say is thank you, everybody. Like, we can have a respectful conversation and everybody get the information. It's very helpful. So, thank you, everybody, for showing up. We do have the report coming up, but I just want to thank everybody for being respectful and listening. The thing that's clear here is that everybody's passionate about hockey and what it does for you and your children and yourself. And it allows, we all know the real demon here is that it's a success and there's just not enough ice allocation anywhere by the sounds of it. So thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. We will continue, but I do want to thank the delegations and for everybody being respectful and listening and hearing all the great information that we heard tonight. Further discussion? Councillor Halleru, please.
Yeah, I do also want to thank you guys for showing up and making your cases clear. It has also educated me, as in you guys all know. Just knowing the history of so many of the clubs and how we share time and how the health of this community is impacted is important to know. So hopefully we get to take all that into consideration.
Excellent. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. And we will now move on to Special Report CS 01724 2024-2025 Arena Ice Allocation. I'll turn that over to Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo your comments there. We really appreciate all this input tonight. That's a lot of information to take in. We have a report here, but it certainly wouldn't be my recommendation to council that we can sort of make an adoption at this point. I think we need to consume some of this information and start to look at how we allocate ice. And there may be some specific questions of council that requires us to dig a little deeper and write a further report. I wouldn't be surprised by that. We're certainly open to it. Of course, we wish we were already building our new ice pad already, but we certainly are moving in that direction. We intend to analyze the numbers and growth in hockey over the next few years to see where that goes. It certainly is scheduled only to be one ice pad, and that would be our phase one. But it's very possible if hockey demand continues to grow this much that there will need to be the look at how we identify more ice time and a second ice pad in the near future after that first pad is built. So I've probably stolen all of Kyle's thunder there, and then I'll turn it over to him to give his report.
I don't have much to add at this point, other than, as everyone will remember, the multi-use study illustrated that essentially Ingersoll needed a pad and a half. What we are seeing here is the half presenting itself in terms of we don't have enough ice time to give. And as you hear in the other municipalities, I know Tilsonburg has a recommendation in their master plan that they're in need of a third pad. So their ice time shortage is a problem across the province. So it's not unique to us. But this is that 0.5% or that half pad that the multi-use study talked about presenting itself as user groups, and hockey continues to expand, which is a great thing. But there just isn't the amount of hours in our facility to be able to accommodate all requests, and that's why this report's in front of you. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that may have come up throughout the presentations or my report.
Sounds like Southwest Oxford needs a pad. Let's put that out there. I will just, I will ask questions for council of the report, please. Councillor Halleru, please.
Okay. Thank you, through you, Mayor. The question is, in our mission statement, we say we want to nurture a community that respects all and offers sustainable services and amenities that promote a quality of living that makes us proud to call Ingersoll home. In your opinion, do you feel it is worth destabilizing a set of teams that have already consistently held us up, so that perhaps we look into how we can move forward and not destabilize what we currently have? Or do you think this is a good time to really rejig everything and take a fresh look?
So if I could just step in there, I believe that's what council's here to decide. Staff have provided opinion, and I don't think that's a fair question for, that's what we're here for. So that's the hard job that we have to do is make that decision, and that is the question of what we have to decide. So
I was just asking how hard it is for him to restructure everyone or keep it consistent and perhaps maybe move it forward. So that was a legitimate question. I just wanted to know if he could tell us how hard or easy it would be for him.
Mr. Graves?
Yeah, and I think it's very hard, and the biggest problem, as Kyle has alluded to, is that we just don't have enough ice time, and we have more demand than we have ice time. And so it's not our intention to cut anyone out, but we're trying our best given the limited resources that we have.
I have a question for you, Kyle, and it's not an answer for tonight. I think I'd like to see a report come back. We've had a lot of information. In that report, I'd like to see, is there any options whatsoever, regardless of, is there any options, regardless of budget or anything, to add more times available for ice? I know in some of the correspondence received, there was some suggestion of maybe a 6 a.m. start, or something like that on the weekends. That would be my request if a report came back, is that it be looked at to see if what is available to create ice time where there is none now, and if those could be, what I would request from the user groups is if they could correspond with our staff to say if they would use that. If they could provide any other times that are available that they would be able to use, that's something we need to know.
And if I could, that's certainly something we can analyze and provide to you the options and what the requirements would be to provide that, and what we would need to do that.
Another item that I think is needed, we work on policy, that's what we do. I kind of like to have a sense more of how others do ice allocation policy. I know ours has been updated. I can remember being in 2014, my first year on council, Councillor Van Kooten, Boston's, and I were the last ones to sit on the ice allocation committee as council members, and I think it was the right decision to take us off. We're not industry experts. It's really about the associations having those important conversations. So, but I do think it's important to look at policy-wise from around the region to see how things are done, so we have a sense of what's going on out there. So if that could be incorporated in such an analysis, that would be very good. And as well as the items that Councillor Van Kooten Boston has requested this evening, those numbers of players and such and where they're currently having ice time and the usage of that, the percentages, all the stats. So we can try to take that all in as well. Councillor Van Kooten Boston and Councillor Halleru.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Kyle. Thinking back to that time when we were on an ice allocation committee, I know that we brought policy in at that point, so I believe the ice allocation committee then went away. Am I correct on that? Or is there still a committee that meets, and does it include all of our user groups? Do they all come to the table, and is there conversation that happens?
All of the user groups submit their requests at the beginning of each year of what ice time they would like to see, and we have not run into this issue before. So usually things just meld and the schedule gets put together. We release the schedule. We have not run into where there's conflicts like this before to have a resolution. So usually whatever is requested is just given, and there's no need to have the committee because there's no discrepancies.
Okay, if I may then. So I would also encourage then some conversations to happen then. Conversations prevent this kind of thing from happening. I'm not saying that this wasn't good tonight. It was absolutely great. We got to hear about all the organizations that have kids and adults alike playing in our community. However, if we have communication that's happening, I also sit on the Ladies Slow Pitch League, and Jamie, one of your staff, has brought all of the user groups together this past year, actually, to talk about who's playing where and when and how it's all happening and all the rules and regulations, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I want to suggest that we do the same thing again. It doesn't mean that we have to have somebody from council sit on there. Sometimes it's not a bad idea, but I don't think that it's necessary. I think that if we have conversation happening between all of our user groups and we're all with our listening ears, like we tell all of our kids, use your listening ears and really listen to each other, I think that we might be able to solve some of these problems. I really do. I am not advocating for anyone to lose their time. I am being very upfront and honest. I have a husband who plays on the Old Timers League, and I have a daughter who plays in Inferno. So do I have a conflict? I don't think that I do, because I'm sitting here very fairly trying to take all the information in. If money becomes an issue and we put money on the table, I will absolutely declare a conflict of interest. But at this point in time, I think that conversation needs to happen. And hopefully with a report being produced by you and your group, I'm hoping that it will lead to some conversation behind the scenes and really start to look at what is in the best interest of our entire community, not just the user groups or maybe that are here, but how can we, as an organization, as a community, come together. And so that's my soapbox, but I leave it at that, but I am also very much wanting us to defer this to another night so that we can digest everything and have a report come back. But I know that Councillor Hallery wants to speak, so I won't put forth that motion as of yet.
Just a quick question. Is there anything that if the report came back that hasn't been mentioned already that you would like to see as part of that report to be able to help form a opinion?
I would like to see what it would be like to reform an ICE allocation committee as well. And how, I agree, I think that there's, as much as I don't want to be a 6 a.m. mom hockey mom, whatever the hell, I don't want to be that 6 a.m. person, but if that's an ICE time that is available, then maybe that's what we are able to offer to the other two ladies groups. Is it something that either ICE group wants? Probably not. That's probably why we see on here that there's no one booked at 6 a.m. However, I have heard from many people in this room tonight that they used to play at 6 a.m. What happened? We all got lazy maybe. And we don't want to do 6 a.m. I'm one of those people. I don't want to be up at 5 a.m. to be into the ice rink for 6. But if we want that time, then maybe that's what we need to look at doing. Hence the reason why I asked the old timers as well, could they be pushed a little bit further? I know my husband does not want to play any later. I understand, you're all older, it takes a lot out of your body and the time that people would have to take and travel back and forth from other communities. I understand that as well, absolutely. I understand where you're traveling to and what time everybody gets home. We have kids that are playing until 11 o'clock at night. Is that an appropriate time for our kids to be playing? Probably not. But we all do it because that's the time that we declare that they can play. Can we play before 3:30? How many parents get home before 3:30? We can't. It's hard, I get it. So I just think that we all need to have representation at the table and really sit down and talk about this and try to work out a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hallery, please.
Whew, how did I follow that? Okay, I want to be very clear. I want to declare that I recently started to run the arena, and I do not think this is a conflict, so I'm going to put it out there. I do think everyone else on council that has kids has a conflict, so I think the emotions are running high here. At my current job, I am a process coordinator and I'm a stickler for process. I, as also, once upon a time, have also ran sports teams, and I would ask for sports time in different cities, proximity, and you honestly have to respect the decisions of the towns when you go asking for time. Ingersoll, like I said, is a community that prides itself in equal opportunity. We have a strategic plan that has shown us that we do need extra time for ICE. We have just seen the proof, as Kyle said, that people do need extra time for ICE. However, I do not think this is something we should defer, because in all honesty, we have heard from all of you. We have heard from those that want to come. We have heard from those who currently share our ICE pads. I prefer, in all honesty, to consider this as an ongoing process to make it more equitable. If there's anyone that is for diversity, I want to be putting up my hand here that, you know what, I do respect that we do need girls' teams. We do need a girl team in town, but we can also hear that we have Skate Canada that really represents the girl interests. We can also see that the men groups are saying it's open for everyone. We're an aging community. We cannot take time to prolong things that we can make a decision for today, except that, in my opinion, it's an emotional thing. It is something that is very clear. You cannot expect people who have a long-term plan to be destabilized because we have an incoming ask. That ask can be deferred because, as we tell people all the time, we usually have our teams schedule times at the beginning of the year. If this ask for me is coming right in the middle of summer, it's unfair to those who have already scheduled time to be told or to be rattled because we have to schedule more time. I know it's unfair to some mothers to feel like they've been going out of town with your kids and they've been going out of town, but I think the timing is not right to destabilize others. If this came in January 2025 and we still had a year to rejig, I can see why council would want to take this whole process, like you said, and have a committee or a group to discuss and negotiate how we do that going forward. And thank God, by 2026, there will be hope that this will no longer be a problem. But I'm not really in support of having us, after having all these people put in all this time and all this effort and emails and everything, now tell them that we have to defer this to make a decision based on what? Based on the fact that Kyle is saying that there is a need, and based on us saying that we will have to, regardless of all this information, regardless of all these teams representing the majority of the Ingersoll players, that we are going to have to think about it. I feel like sometimes we get carried away, but we need to be fair to the process. If you're asking now, it's a little late, in my opinion, and I have heard from Kyle that this would be us having to rejig. Let's be fair. I have not been part of any discussion asking us to defer this, so I would really hate for us to do that. I think this is slam dunk. We need to just apologize to those that we can't accommodate and hopefully accommodate them in the future. Because I also don't want to feel like our town is being bullied, because we're a small town and we can come to council and ask and get what we ask for. I think it's unfair to those who already exist and have a very consistent support for the town, pay up front, create a synergy, and we do not want to create fights amongst the hockey families. Every family here will be affected one way or the other. So mothers playing, children playing, fathers playing, please guys, let's not rock the boat. And I think that's my honest opinion, that we take a look at the evidence today and just adopt something instead of have this carryover, because again, Kyle needs to put that schedule together for the winter. And that's me arresting my case.
Thank you. Certainly respect your opinion, but I will ask that you don't infer any opinion on any other member of council, as theirs to have on their own. Do you have any requests if a report was to come forward?
The request for a report to come forward would be to guide us in how we go forward with an allocation for the next year, not to rejig what we currently have. That's my request, and I'm not inferring my opinion on anyone. I don't know where that came from.
Councilor Hughes?
Yes, thank you. Kyle, obviously this has all been brought forward to you. You've been working on it for probably a month or two. What is, if you want to call it a drop dead date, where our user groups need to know what their allocation is?
Obviously, the sooner the better. We would have time, if you did defer, to be able to come with a report at the next month's meeting, decide the schedule at next month's meeting. But by the time you get past August, you're into September and we're back to the season. So August meeting would be absolute drop dead date to establish the schedule.
Anything further, Councillor Hughes?
No, it's a passionate kind of thing. We're passionate about our hockey, and we're Canadians. I've never played myself, but it's something that we need to offer, to be able to offer to all of our residents of Ingersoll. And I'm kind of torn. There was a lot of information tonight, and I would support a deferral, whether it comes back at the August meeting, or if there's another special meeting of council before then, if Kyle's able to put the information together, so it gives the user groups time. But again, there was a lot of information, new information that has come tonight that I think we should digest and move forward from there.
Further questions for council? Or Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, through you. I think the conversation is nice and the words are nice and everyone is very emotional about their connection to hockey, which is wonderful. But at the end of the day, what we are here to do is define a policy that tells us very clearly who gets the ice, how much, and why. If the policy did that, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The policy would have clearly said who gets what and why, and people might have been turned down and people might have, got less or more, but the policy does not function in a way that helps people understand what happens when you actually need a pad and a half and we only have a pad. So this conversation won't go away until we address the policy that tells us what happens when the need far exceeds what we have available to us. So in terms of a staff policy or a report that came back, I would want to know, as other people mentioned, how other people are handling this situation. This is not the only community by a long shot that is trying to manage the growth in girls' hockey associations that historically did not have ice when policies are based on historical access to ice. That is just a change in how hockey has been operating that we have to be able to understand and meet the need fairly for all of the user groups. So I'm certainly not suggesting that we need to force people to make those changes this season, recognizing the teams are made, the rosters are made, they've probably even collected the registration fees and they know how much they're charging. So, agreeing with my colleagues that we don't necessarily have to get this policy in place yesterday, but knowing that they do need to know the ice that's available. So I think we need to make sure we understand an equitable access to the ice that doesn't weigh the negative impact of one organization over the other, because currently we're giving some organizations mostly what they've asked for and other organizations zero. So we have to find some sort of middle ground through the policy, as difficult as that conversation will be. And I think further to Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson's, the dialogue is important, but at the end of the day, the goal is a very clear policy that will remove the need for these nuanced conversations that become very uncomfortable for everybody. So I would, policy suggestions, best practices, how are other communities handling this conversation would be very helpful, because, what we don't want is people, uncomfortable in the community because the conversations are awkward and that kind of thing. So again, really clear policy definition is what I would be looking for. And one more specific thing would be how we're handling returned ice, and if there's any wiggle room in how much returned ice is being given back, and if there's any way to kind of make that available to other user groups on a shorter turnaround, or if there's any way to kind of, use that efficiently if that's ice that's becoming available and difficult for local user groups to use. Maybe that's a way we can kind of find some compromise in the near future.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to thank all the people here tonight, bringing representation from all the different groups. I don't know about the rest of council. It sort of sounds like you're all in the same boat. Had a lot of information thrown at me tonight, a lot of details. There's been questions asked for clarification on some facts and numbers. And I don't know whether I would be able to make a decision this evening with everything that's been on the plate. So with that said, I would like to jump into the water with both feet and say that I, as Councillor Bowman, would move that the report CS-017-24 2024-2025 ice allocation be deferred until our next meeting of council to allow us to digest and for staff to bring forward a more detailed summary and report for council's consideration. And further, that council look into reorganizing the user group forum to create dialogue amongst all user groups.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens. Discussion. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, please.
Everything that I need to say.
Perfect. The only thing that I might add is if we could, and I don't, it's totally up to Kyle and his team, is whether we could bring it back sooner than our August meeting. If we could have a meeting of council, okay, perfect. So I would have no problem in us coming back sooner than August if that is what we could do. Because I think that user groups are waiting to hear. And I too don't want to see anybody waiting longer, but I think that you need to give the 7 of us a little bit more time to digest all the information. Thank you.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Thank you. I totally agree, and I want to say I support Lindsay's deputy mayor's notion that we do need new policy around this, and when we talk about policy, we know we also need time. We need to really give staff time to design that policy, which is, again, risk of time. So I, too, would really love to have us come back if we really want to go about it. But I feel like if you really want to go do good policy, you also need time. And time is of the essence, and this is why I already see this, as something that we can take our time to perfect, because when we have a new arena, we do need that policy in place. And I think we should think more forward about having this in place for next year than really trying to squeeze everything in this year. We have other things to do, guys. So that's my opinion.
Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I think the deferral is just more so for the arena ice time allocation as opposed to bringing back a full-blown policy on how we're going to move forward. I think we can give Kyle and his staff time until the new year to come across with a reasonable policy after doing the proper research and that type of thing. I think the focus should be on the ice allocation time initially, and then moving forward a policy that we can implement into next year and into the future. That's my take on this whole conversation.
Thank you. Further discussion? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I wasn't going to address this, but because I'm about to vote on the motion, I want to come back to it. There was a suggestion that if perhaps you have a family member playing in the association that we would be impacted by an allocation policy, that might present a conflict of interest. But earlier today, I just wanted to make sure that was not the case, and so I got advice from the Integrity Commissioner, who confirmed that it is not a conflict of interest to vote or discuss the matter. So I just thought I would address that to make sure that there's no misconception around anybody at the table participating or voting on the motion.
Thank you very much for that. Further discussion? I'll take a shot at this. I think we'd be amiss to not consider all the information we heard tonight. Very rarely does this happen when we have this many people come out to a council meeting. I wish it was this case. I wish it was full all the time. We all love this stuff. But it's a lot of times it's not the case. So when people take time out of their busy nights and schedules to come out and voice their opinion, to show up, to share with information with us, we need to take that into consideration. I'm not an expert at this. Everybody out there, I can't deny everybody out there is passionate, and they just want to play hockey for their families, or they want to skate. They just want to use the ice, and it is, like Councillor, you said, it's a Canadian tradition. The problem is that these resources, this infrastructure, are extremely expensive. We know this. I wish we could put up as many pads as we needed, but we're already looking at $30 million for one pad, and then it's another $10 million for the next. So we have to be very certain that ice is going to get used. And so we are left in a dilemma where the good thing is that girls hockey has grown, and it's used up excess capacity with those who've had excess capacity with Woodstock and Zora, to the point where now they're without excess capacity to be able to grow that. And so now we're all in the same boat. I'll go back to Southwest Oxford, they have zero capacity. That being said, it is a regional thing where people go for all over the place stuff. We know in everything that we do that nothing in Ingersoll happens with just Ingersoll residents and vice versa. Most of us probably can't tell you every single border where it is in our town and what municipality we're going into, because it doesn't matter as long as we see the services that we need. We all want to play local. That's a given. That's the easiest, nice thing. You play at your hometown. I need this time, and I think others are saying they need the time and the other information to make sure that we get this as fair as possible and right as possible at this time. There's always room for improvement. Because at the end of the day, there is already too much too much ask for the ice. We all heard from everybody else that, oh, we could expand, we could expand, we could expand. It's not a problem of the want, it's the ability to produce that. So we can't, it's going to be a lose-lose situation no matter what. So I think it deserves a little bit more thought and process and information to make sure that I can personally justify if someone asks me, hey, I took it into consideration, and I'm hearing that around the table, that this is what we want, that we took it seriously, and that's my view on it, is that I need that time to be able to do it. So I'm in favor of the motion to defer, to get the information, to understand this situation fully. Again, not too often does this many people show up to a council meeting from especially all the different organizations. Every organization that uses that ice is here. So kudos to you for showing up and voicing your opinion. So I'll be in support of the motion. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. And we will take a break now. A motion to recess for 5 minutes. Councillor Hughes and Deputy Mayor Wilson, discussion, all those in favor? Back to order, and I'll ask Councillor Van Kootenbos to take us back into Committee of Adjustment, please.
Certainly, sorry, I was about to say your worship, my apologies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kootenbos, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll go into Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance application, A-011-24. Wrong one? Oh, A-01-24. Is that better?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried, and we are back now in the Committee of Adjustment. I appreciate the patience as we dealt with our 7 o'clock agenda. At this point, I'd like to ask Heather Sinclair to go over the report again. I'm just joking. Okay. So with that, I will ask council for questions of the report. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring up the report. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically there's, they have increased some and then decreased some, or sorry, increased some in regards to the green space. They're asking for relief on the front yard depth, relief from the reduced to required exterior side yard, relief from minimum required landscaping open space from 15 to 12. That was originally 9, I believe, was it? Right, okay, thank you. They're also asking for requirement for loading spaces requirements. So that one, the 2 parking space issues bother me in regards to this report, in regards to this application. And it is of the planning department's opinion that we should not be looking at allowing that because of it would, set a precedence by lowering that amount, which we would also have to worry about the neighboring easterly lot. And then the offloading, unloading requirements space. I have to agree with sorry, I need a question.
You do not if you'd like to have comment when there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, no problem. So, again, I think it was mentioned about other municipalities. So other municipalities do they have a lower parking requirement space per business or space per unit? Or are we still within the within the regular requirement of other municipalities by requesting the 223 spaces?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The applicant has submitted a parking study. The comment earlier was in response to the correspondence provided by the applicant to the committee, demonstrating examples that were for other larger urban centers. They use specifically London, Windsor, and Ottawa as examples. It's difficult to compare apples to apples in this situation. Those types of larger urban centers have public transit that's available that often reduces parking calculations, whereas Ingersoll does not. And in this case, staff are of the opinion that the overall parking requirement has already been substantially reduced from the previous decision of the Ontario Municipal Board, and we are of the opinion that a further reduction at this time is not warranted.
Thank you. Further questions?
Yeah, I do.
Councillor Hughes, or Member Hughes, please.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Chair. And yes, thank you for actually commenting on that late addition of information. I'm not confused by it, but it was interesting to see their comments come back in regards to the parking and the garbage picking up, and in reference to the McDonald's here in town. And I know the The other question I had was on the snow removal area or the snow storage. Now, they do have, welcome to Canada, they do have very, in my opinion, what appears to be very small or limited snow storage areas. Have they mentioned about removing that snow on a regular basis as opposed to just piling up as what a number of other developments like this do?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The initial submission that first came through showed a large or very minimal areas for snow storage that staff did not consider to be adequate. The applicant has revised the design fairly significantly, and we are satisfied with the area for snow storage now. They have indicated that snow will be removed off-site as well. They've provided an agreement with their potential property maintenance people to demonstrate this. The issue is that the municipality has no authority to regulate this, so we do need to be satisfied that there is sufficient snow storage area. And in order to accommodate this, they've proposed it on the west side of the property. And so staff are generally satisfied now that the snow storage area is appropriate.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I believe Councillor Hughes, you have, yes, Councillor Hughes, you have a motion?
Yes, Member Hughes. Moved by Member Hughes, seconded by Member Helleroo, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive planner report number CP 2024-220 as information, and that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment approve application file A01-24 submitted by Clarke Commercial Shopping Center for lands described as Part Lot 19, Concession 1, West Oxford, Part 1-9, Plan 41R-1061 in the Town of Ingersoll, being municipally known as 223 Clarke Road East, as it relates to relief from Section 5.11.1 to reduce the size of the loading space from 9 meters to 29.5 feet to 3.5 meters, 11.5 feet to 9 meters, 29.5 feet to 3 meters, 9.8 feet from the building identified as CRU3 on Plate 3 attached here too. Relief from Table 12.2 to reduce the required front yard depth from 7.5 meters, 24.6 feet to 7 meters, 17.3 feet. Relief from Table 12.2 to reduce the required exterior side yard from 7.5 meters, 24.6 feet to 2.9 meters, 9.8 feet. 3, relief from Table 12.2 to reduce the minimum required landscape open spaces area from 15% to 15% lot area to 12%. Conditional on final approval of the associated application for site plan approval, file number SP 6-23-05, to the satisfaction of the Town of Ingersoll. As proposed variants are considered to be 1, minor variance from provisions of the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw 04-4160. 2, desirable for the appropriate development or use of land. 3, in keeping with the general intent of the purpose of the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw 04-4160, and in keeping with the general intent of the purpose of the official plan of the County of Oxford. And further that, the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment deny application file A-01-24 submitted by Clarke Commercial Shopping Center, Inc. for lands described as Part Lot 19, Concession 1, West Oxford, Part 1-9, Plan 41R-10601 in the Town of Ingersoll, being municipally known as 223 Clarke Road East, as it relates to relief from Section 5.11.1 to reduce the loading space requirements for the building identified as CRU1 on Plate 3, attached here too. relief from section 12.3.10.2.9 to reduce the required number of parking spaces on the site from table 15.19.2.1 to reduce the number of required numbers of parking spaces on the site from table 5.19.2.1 to reduce the required numbers of parking spaces from the site from 223 spaces to 201 spaces, as the proposed variances are not considered to be 2, desirable for the appropriate development of the land use, or, a development or use of the land. 3, in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw number 04-4160.
Councillor Hughes is the mover. Would you like to comment on that?
Wow. Yes. Excuse me. Again, it's the issue. It's the parking issue. One of the concerns that I have also too in regards to that is not only the fact that it's just the residents of Ingersoll that'll be utilizing that facility. It could also be people coming in off the 401, being very close. They're going to pop in there. They're going to, go to that fast food place. They could go to the grocery store and pick up some supplies for a picnic. So there is going to be added other than just the Town of Ingersoll residents and of course surrounding area. So that is a big thing there. And then again too with the loading space on the easterly side, easterly, close that one, CRU1. Sorry, that's right up top there. Yeah, so it needs to have that access in there, and again, offloading, loading is going to be blocking up parking spaces, as was mentioned in regards to the McDonald's garbage pickup area there, and would cause a lot of grief, I think, for the town and the staff that would have to deal with it on a regular basis.
Councillor Hallery, please.
Yeah, I just want to say as a seconder, I definitely agree with this because we don't want to set a bad precedent. And we also need to recognize that just along the road, we're going to have a whole new community. And when we talk about not having transportation and buses, that's a concern. Traffic is only going to increase in that location, so we better do it right, get it right the first time. So we are not at liberty to kind of make customized acceptance to our, planning department. So I think it's only fair that we take recommendations from our planner as it benefits us even into the future, unfortunately. Thank you.
Further discussion? The statement support of the resolution, given the fact that it is, there was a requirement from the OMB, which is lower than our current parking standards. I think we've had what I'll call decisions of experience happen within the town of Ingersoll before that have taught us that given that we are a smaller community without public transit, and that given that the highway is so close that we rely on for our let's face it, our livelihood, that we do have increased transportation use through cars, especially with uses of such as grocery stores and these other items that could be incorporated within this development. Again, I agree with the others that have stated about precedent. Certainly, we have made decisions that have stuck before, and I want to be fair across the board. And I think that sticking with these parking requirements, even though they're less than what we've discussed before because they were imposed by the OMB, I will respect that. And I think that it can be accommodated. This is a greenfield site. It is a minor, it has not been built yet. There's been many opportunities before where you have infill that maybe it can't be accomplished, but I think that this can be, and I agree with staff's opinion on that. Given that, I think that it is showing that council is being reasonable in the fact that we are approving the minor variances that we can, and that staff are willing to work with the applicant to ensure that reasonable requests are brought forward with a recommendation for approval. And I support that section of the motion as well, because I do think that that has been shown that there is not going to be negative impacts that can be mitigated through the planning process and through site plan to make sure that those issues that are identified in a zoning bylaw are not aggravated by what's being proposed. Unfortunately, we know all too well, yeah, I think Ingersoll has a lot of good examples, like I said, of issues have been, where things are squished and it just does not come out the best. And I think that's the case where our zoning bylaw is. I can't speak to other zoning bylaws around the area. Certainly, London, Windsor, Ottawa, much different beasts. Even Woodstock's different. If you have a lot more development, you have chances for offload. I do not want that residential area to be plugged with vehicles. I think a good example is the new Costco in London. People are parked on the road in a brand new development, which, because there's not enough parking for what the need was. A grocery store has a high demand. People don't walk to the grocery store very often. They're carrying things, they need things. These are shopping centers, and it's got highway commercial as well. So again, I'll leave it there. I'm in support of the recommendation as written, and I will be voting for it. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now move on to, we will now ask to rise from Committee of Adjustment and to resume our council meeting. Councillor Hallery, please.
Yeah, thank you through Chair. This is moved by myself, Member Hallery, seconded by Member Bosons, that this Committee of Adjustment meeting now be adjourned and that the July 8th, 2024 regular council of meeting come back into order.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And, all right, we are down at correspondence and resolutions, I believe. Is that correct, Clarke? Thank you. Just to confirm. So, item 21, Lions Club special events. Is there anything staff want to highlight in that before we have a resolution?
Just the request that's there, we want to ensure that they also comply with our special events process, but also the requirements of AGCO.
Perfect. Councillor Hallery, you have a resolution put on the
Yes,
floor?
thank you through you, Mayor. The moved by myself, Councillor Hallery, seconded by Councillor Bosons, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from Charlie Hugh of the Ingersoll Lions Club as information, and that Council approve the Ingersoll Lions request for a special events permit and noise bylaw exemption conditional on the club satisfying the requirements of the town's special events permitting process and AGCO requirements.
Discussion. Councillor Van Koopmans.
So I'm not trying to stop anything from happening here, but I've gone in and read that they would like the whole park for alcohol consumption. That's not what has happened in the past. It's always been a designated area. And does AGCO allow for the whole entire park to be licensed?
The short answer is we're not positive, and that's why we added that part into the resolution that they have to meet the AGCO requirements. So they'll have to comply with whatever AGCO requires. We think they won't allow that, but we could be wrong. So if we refer it straight to them, it should be okay.
And just to clarify, I believe they're meeting with ACGO tomorrow morning in the park. So to have a site plan, that's a requirement of them to, any new event, they must meet with the inspectors to go over stuff. So.
I allowed my name to stay on as a second, just so that we could have this discussion. Even if it's allowed, I'm not sure that we should. I think that there should be an area that if people wanted to be able to go and enjoy the music, they don't have to have somebody drinking alcohol beside them. As much as I would love to think that we could all consume alcohol in an orderly manner and not have alcohol being spilled on others at a concert, I know very well, I've been to concerts myself, and that doesn't always happen. So if we are trying to make this still a family-friendly event as well, because I've heard that out in the community, that we are trying to make sure that families are welcome to come down as well, then I do believe that we should have a sectioned area for just alcohol consumption. That is my own feeling. So
Do you want to modify?
I don't know if I want to modify. I would love to hear what others think around the table as well. I'm just putting that out there. I think that it's something that we need to talk about. I feel like it was just kind of put in there, and I'm glad that AGCO was added in to let us know whether it can or cannot happen in that respect, but I think it's something that we need to talk about as council.
Councillor Halleru?
Thank you. Okay, so I've moved it because that AGCO was put in there, so can we get more of an explanation of what AGCO actually means or covers? Or is it something that we can't? Yeah.
Yeah, if I could, and maybe the clerk wants to do this better than I'll do it, but Alcohol Gaming Commission creates rules for how you can consume and how you can have these special events. They have very prescriptive rules, so they usually are quite prescriptive on what they require. So it's very wise of them to be having a meeting and to be going over that, because they'll get very definitive answers on what can and cannot be allowed. It's much like public health in that they have prescriptive rules on how you service food and so on. So that's why staff included that in there, because we normally require that if somebody's doing something that requires public health input or some other agency's input. It's good to acknowledge that. But, you know, if council also feels that they want to regulate that, then they're welcome to that.
I'll just speak to it that this is something that the province is allowed to happen within certain stipulations. It's certainly not, there's very strict standards about policies and stuff that have to be coordinated with. The difference between, I think there's still, there's that view of everybody's getting hammered. I think it's more like when you go to a brewery, you can go out in the patio, you can have a beer. That's the intent of the show. It's definitely to limit alcohol. It's certainly not to have a free-for-all of just everybody. There's kegs in the middle of everywhere. It would certainly be controlled going elsewhere. And so it's one of those things where this is something that's the Lions wanted to explore, as other festivals have done, to create more just of a free-flowing, so people aren't in one area. They can just go and choose where they sit and have a drink responsibly where they choose to watch the show. Certainly not meant to cause any issues that way, but again, they would have to apply and see what the regulations are, because they don't know 1,000% at this time what they would be. Councillor Halleru?
Just wanted to clarify, so usually when there's an event and they have this requirement, just like you say, like the public health has certified you to go ahead, do we have any precedents that people would do something different other than be civil about where they drink and how they drink? Like, is there an experience to draw from?
Why is everyone looking at me?
Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, I'll comment to that. No, there isn't any history of any, I'll say, concert or music festival that has gone on where there's been public drunkenness and disorder. When the Canterbury Folk Festival was happening, there was a beer garden set up specifically in an area. One of the thoughts by the Lions is, as the mayor said, to be able to have people free flow, get a beer, go back to their chair that isn't necessarily in that same spot, wherever the beer is being sold. It works. Having just did my Smart Serve, having the whole park done, there is a certain amount of monitoring that has to go on, but at the same time, there's all the entrances that will have to be monitored by security as well. And to a certain degree, that would work better, because then there's a scenario of you have to deal with, and you know, it's happened down at the Canterbury Folk Festival where people brought in their own drinks and just did it quietly, you know, didn't get drunk, didn't get ridiculous. That would, to a certain degree, stop some of that. So now you don't have any uncontrolled drinking within the area in which the concert is happening.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. When I saw the request for alcohol consumption in the entire park without any fencing, that is what prompted my question around, does council even have the jurisdiction to make that call, or does that fall under, excuse me, the AGCO? And that remains to be seen based on the conversations tomorrow. Because I'm more falling in line with you. I don't love the idea of alcohol consumption through the entire park. But having said that, if it falls within what AGCO has determined is safe and the special events plan and fire chief can determine is safe, I would be satisfied with that. But I'll admit, like when I first saw it, I didn't love it. But I'm putting my faith in our fire chief and our staff that I know will make sure that, you know, there's a good plan in place and AGCO will have the appropriate expectations.
And just to clarify, the Canterbury Folk Festival, when it took place, this was not allowed under the law. You had to have a segregated area, so this is something that the government has brought in to be able to, part of their relaxing regulations. Again, the area does have to be segregated, and that's why it was only thought by the group that this could happen in Memorial Park, because you do have controlled entrances because of the creek and the barriers. If you had a Victoria Park per se, I think the requirements would be so crazy that you wouldn't be able to fulfill that with security. There is a plan to have different respect, like to control that, but again, it all depends on what the ACGO says. Councillor Hallery, please.
So would it feel better to have this deferred to the next meeting then, where they had, like if we're having any other special meeting, to defer this once they've seen, so that everybody feels comfortable that there's guidelines that are clear?
The issue is that there will not be enough time to get a permit. There may not be alcohol there with the strike that's going on. Because it has to go through the LCBO, that has to be bought through the LCBO. There's a chance that can't, like that part of it can't happen due to that. So given the time restraints, they're having stuff in, that's why it was already requested to be an event of municipal significance. This is to just clarify what that ask is. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
Okay, so I'll go with it. However, I would like to do an amendment, and that we need to also include the west entrance, which is off of the back of the First Baptist parking lot. That has been redone, and it is a very nice entrance, thank you, Kyle and staff. But we need to, that entrance also needs to be taken into consideration, and it is not written in here. I know that the committee would probably make sure that it was, but I think it should be written into so I will make an amendment.
Can I just clarify something for you that may help you?
Yep.
That has already been discussion with park staff, and they're going to close that entrance off to begin with. They can gate that entrance, so it will not be accessible.
Sorry.
But I don't, not to, if you want to put it in there, that's fine, but I just wanted to.
No, I just also want to say, isn't that family, like the street along there is all family homes? And
No, the
right?
west entrance into the park is off of the back of the
that church.
Of the First Baptist Church.
And you're saying it's not gonna-
There is an entrance to come down into
Yeah.
the park, and it's not mentioned into this report.
Yeah, so we're saying it's going to be closed, is that what you're saying?
When talking with the initial consultation between the group and the staff, it was said by staff that they have the ability to close that off, and they would to control, make sure you're not trespassing onto other people's property. You're only entering through town property.
I know that when you want to get a public health approval, you need at least 2 weeks to get them in. How much time does it require to get the AGCO license?
That's the problem. It's up in the air, and so that's with the requirements right now with the LCBO being off. It's possible that it could not happen.
Oh, okay.
But it's possible you don't. It's an unknown at this point.
I'll be fine with that.
So we go with this?
I'm fine. Sorry,
No, I appreciate the conversation. It's something different.
Valid concerns, yeah.
Totally get that.
Okay, so that's done then.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And now we will move on to AMO advocacy homeless encampments. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
Going right to the motion. All right, moved by myself, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives AMO's policy paper, Homeless Encampments in Ontario, a municipal perspective as information, and that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll endorse AMO's call for provincial and federal leadership and action to address the growing crisis of homelessness homelessness encampments in communities across Ontario, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing of Ontario, Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MPP, Arpan Khanna, Oxford MP, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Obviously, the more that happens in the, this grows as an issue that people are trying to work towards. It's good to see that AMO is doing some work towards it and providing some research into it. So every little bit helps, and there's a lot to learn out there. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And that concludes our correspondence resolution. We will now go into bylaws. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into Committee of the Whole on the following bylaws. 1, Bylaw 24-5327, a bylaw to execute a municipal funding agreement, CCBF. 2, Bylaw 24-5328, facade revitalization loan agreement, 109 Mutual Street. 3, Bylaw 24-5329, amend zoning bylaw 04-4160, zoning bylaw housekeeping update. 4, Bylaw 24-5330, appoint Deb Dawson as Deputy Division Registrar. 5, Bylaw 24-5331, July 8, 2024, confirmation bylaw. Council and Committee of the Whole, Mayor Petrie in the chair. On motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated. That constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're now in Committee of the Whole. Would anybody like to discuss any of the bylaws? Seeing none, Councillor Hughes, please.
Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Helleroo, that the committee do now rise out of Committee of the Whole.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Councillor Helleroo, third reading, please.
Thank you, through you. I'll move by myself, Councillor Helleroo, seconded by Councillor Beckert-Bosson, that bylaws 245327 to 24-5331 be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed, as this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Go into closed session, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson. The council do now go into a closed meeting at 9:33 p.m. pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following matters. 1, minutes of a closed session, May 13th, 2024, meeting 1. Minutes of a closed session, 2 minutes of a closed session, May 13th, 2024, meeting 2. 3 minutes of a closed session, June 3rd, 2024. 4 minutes of a closed session, June 24th, 2024. 5, 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, 50 Newman Street proposals.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll now reconvene in the J.C. Herbert Room.